Welcome to another deadline stream. Thank you very much to everyone who has been tuning in, and thankfully I was able to do the team selection video yesterday, and I'm feeling even better now compared to how I was on Thursday and also just the rest of the week. I'm going to try go on as long as possible and trying to get through every single one of your questions and comments, but I will probably be still struggling in certain stages, so try to be patient with me. I'll still try my absolute best to get through everything, so thank you very much. I'm going to be also talking about my possible transfers. I put a poll out earlier, so let's wait and see what you guys are saying. And also, girls, let's not exclude anyone. And once again, if you haven't seen my team selection video, I got 50 points in Game Week 6. Got a small red arrow, so my first of the season. And my team is in a bit of a state, but I still think I could hold on to the wild card. And I'll be explaining why. Holding on to the wild card possibly until Game Week 8 it might be better. Of course, it's a team-dependent thing, and will probably be wildcarding to something very similar anyway, so it's not really the end of the world, but I think there might be a slight advantage to saving it. So thank you very much to everyone who's been tuning in. Really appreciate it, and I'm going to go through all your questions. Ali says, play Veltman, have Sanchez in goal, or take a -4 to bring in Rudiger for Ayling and play Rudiger over Veltman. I think Rudiger's a really good pick long term, but if you're wildcarding in Game Week 8 anyway, then I'd just avoid the hit and play Veltman and then bring in Rudiger next week on your wildcard. Otherwise, you could maybe just wait anyway and just wait for Game Week 8 and then get Rudiger in. Yeah, I agree with Rodrev. Addy says, after playing the wild card, I still have too many players. I need to get out Reece James, Greenwood, Ronaldo. Great, I've transferred in Rudiger for Reece. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, that's why sometimes playing it early, obviously, it can work out, but it can also be, I'd say, a bit, risky, and, there can be a lot of things that could happen, the things that can go wrong, and especially when you have more information, more data, and then you have these international breaks out of the way, I think it is better that way. Who could I bring in for Bamford? I think if you don't have him already, Antonio is definitely a no-brainer, but in terms of fixtures, I would be saying Jimenez is a good one until Game Week 14, and then long-term, for a budget strike, I think Tony is probably still my favourite. There is Malpai and Saint-Maximin for the short-term. I've been highlighting them in previous streams too. Is it a good tactic in FPL to be aggressive and risky and play with a -4, -8 every week? Not in my opinion, Maxim. Obviously, there's a time and place for being aggressive and taking hits like that, but every single week, I just don't think it will pay off, because sometimes it's going to backfire and the players you bring out are actually going to do well. So in my opinion, not every week, but from time to time, yes. And that's why I think calculated hits can be very good. Evening to you, Steve. Son or Grealish? In terms of the fixtures and the form, I would probably go for Grealish, but still, I'm not too sure about Grealish as an FPL asset. I think he can do well. He can tick along nicely, get 5 to 8 goals, and maybe double digits in assists, but I'm just not too sure. Son, overall, is the better asset, but I think in terms of the fixtures, Grealish is the one for me. How did you do in UCL Fantasy, Dylan? I will be talking about that in my Matchday 3 team selection, but I got 106 points, and I think playing the Limitless, it definitely was the right decision. I made a few mistakes with the Limitless. For example, my goalkeeper selections, I could have gone with the Zenit keeper, for example, but overall, still really good, and I probably should have captained Salah on Matchday 1 or Day 1 of Matchday 2, but still, can't really complain, and I'm around 3,000 in the world now after such a really turbulent start. Yeah, Son or Grealish, once again, I'd probably say Grealish at the moment. No, not every game week Maxim, but to do sometimes like this one, maybe, yeah, I agree, William. Hello, Dylan. Decided to wildcard this game week. My starting 11 is Ramsdale, Cancelo, Christensen, Rudiger, Rafinha, Sarr, Salah, Saka, Vardy, Antonio, Lukaku as captain. Looks really good, to be honest. I mean, there's not really a clear weakness there. Cancelo can still keep a clean sheet against Liverpool, although I'd expect Liverpool to score a goal or two in that game, but that's a really good team, especially long term. Saka, I still have my doubts as an FPL asset on a consistent basis, but the same goes for anyone around that price, maybe except for Rafinha. Should I get in Rafinha or Gallagher for Jota, considering there's a high chance of Rafinha missing next game weeks because of the international matches? That's a good point. I'd still prefer Rafinha, but of course, when you put it that way, Gallagher would be the safer bet, but I just prefer Rafinha. Good evening to you. That username's funny. Grealish versus Sarr. I think for game week 7 exclusively, I'd go for Sarr, but looking at the fixtures long term, you'd probably say Grealish. Having said that though, just kind of excluding fixtures, who do I think is the better asset? I think in terms of value for money, definitely Sarr, but because the fixtures are so poor, I'd probably be inclined to say Grealish. This time is all good. Voice sounds better. Thank you. I mean, are you on about the mic or the actual voice? But yeah, I mean, because the voice or the microphone in UCL Fantasy, I don't even want to say what happened there, but yeah, the sound was a bit weird in that one. I made a mistake there. And yeah, as for the voice in terms of illness, yeah, I'm getting better. So hopefully, yeah, it doesn't hurt too much, but I can already kind of feel it, you know, so I'm going to have to take it easy today. Do I take a -8 and captain Lukaku or a -4 and captain Ronaldo? For this game week specifically, I don't really prefer Lukaku over Ronaldo that much to justify an extra -4 on top of it. So I'd rather do the -4 and captain Ronaldo. Keep Alonso this week or take a -4? I'd probably keep him, but there is a chance that Chilwell starts based on what happened in midweek. Cherie says, hi Dylan, pick one to sub on for Trent. William punt for possible clean sheet or Livramento versus Chelsea. Normally I'd say Livramento, but he is playing Chelsea. I don't really expect anything there. I'd probably actually go for Norwich. So I'd go for Williams, but honestly, you know, I just don't trust Norwich at all, but I'd probably go for him this week. Pope for Sanchez, Alonso for James, and Son for Salah. Thoughts? For this game week specifically, I would agree with those transfers, but even then Alonso's a big rotation risk considering what's happened, so that would be very risky. The others make sense, but long term I'd rather have Salah over Son. I'd rather have Sanchez over Pope because of price, and also James over Alonso. That's a difficult one. I'd still probably prefer Alonso at the moment, but James could be good. Teams in a mess. I missed the first 2 game weeks because I was busy with school and missed deadlines because FPL didn't let me log now. I got 2 transfers in the bank and a load to take out. Yeah, whenever you start late, of course, you know, it's going to be really difficult to get, you know, the rank you want, but you never know. You could still get into the top 100k at least, but yeah, obviously 2 game weeks is a lot in the grand scheme of things. William says, hey Dylan, did my wildcard this week. Can you rate it? Ramsdale, Rudiger, Azpilicueta, Cancelo, Salah, Grealish, Rafinha, Gallagher, Antonio Lukaku. So Maximan. Trying to think of weaknesses, at least for the time being. You know what, that's a very good team, and Azpilicueta is now kind of the new flavour of the month, with Alonso being a rotation risk, and we only really have Rudiger as another nailed Chelsea defender option, and you can always move one of those Chelsea defenders to a City one like Diaz and double up with them. I think that could be a really good strategy moving forwards. I wonder who your kind of bench players are. I'm guessing you have Foster, and maybe with your defenders you probably have Duffy and Livramento, but that looks solid overall. As long as you have a bit of depth on your bench, I think that should be fine. Why Grealish to Son? Son is going to score a lot, or is Grealish better? I just think with the fixtures, and also look at Spurs. Yeah, they're scoring a lot of goals in the Conference League, but in the Premier League they're really struggling to score more than 1 goal really, and sometimes they don't score at all. But of course, Son and Kane are great assets. They're going to come good, but with Nuno's tactics, something has to change, because at the moment the whole team seems disjointed, and Grealish with the fixtures I think can outscore Son for the next few game weeks. Of course, up until the end of the season I would expect Son to score more points. Let's see, I'll try to get through these quickly. So if I do miss your question or comment, apologies, and you can put it forward one more time, but all I ask is no spamming of the chat. Hey Dylan, I took a 4-point hit to bring in Tony. Is that a good decision long term? Long term, yes. If you keep him, you give him a chance, and especially with those fixtures from game week 10 to 12, I definitely think so. Of course, taking a -4 hit for him now might not be the kind of most ideal time. He's got some tough fixtures coming up until game week 10, but I think long term it could pay off. Thoughts on Son? I think he's still a really good asset, but because Spurs are suffering and struggling to score goals, and also Son is relatively expensive, you've got so many other premium options doing well in midfield and attack, I would rather go without him for now, but of course he's got the fixtures to do well, and I think Son and Kane will start combining for more goals this season, not as much as last season though. By the way, I hope you're feeling better. Thank you very much, Maxim, and yes, I am feeling better, but of course, you know, it's still a struggle, and that's why, you know, a 2-hour, 2.5-hour stream, it might not be possible, but in the future it could be, especially, you know, when there's a lot of comments coming in. What do you think of Bruno against Everton? 34 points against 2 matches against Everton. That's true, but then again, he had a really good record against Aston Villa, and he blanked, and if anything, you know, he missed a penalty. But yeah, I think Bruno's a good option this week. If I had him, I wouldn't be getting rid, but on a wild card, there's no doubt that I would be going for other options. Tierney, Van Dijk, Rudiger, Cresswell, and Duffy, which 3 should I pick? Good question. I think for this week specifically, I would go Rudiger for sure. That shouldn't be in the equation. I'd probably go for Tierney, and I'd probably go for Cresswell. I'm thinking of selling Arnold, bring Cancelo and sell Sissoko and bring Saka. What do you think? I think that could be really good for this game week specifically, but long term, I'd rather have Trent. But of course, Cancelo's a really good choice too. And, there's definitely nothing wrong with replacing Trent with Cancelo. But yeah, I mean, Saka is an upgrade on Sissoko. I can see that. But yeah, it's mainly just the move for this week, I think. I forgot to sub in UCL, would have been 159th in the world. Yeah, but, it is what it is. It's happened. And so a lot of people are kind of caught off guard or they forget to do things. But, in all my guys, I always stress the importance of substitutions and captaincy, the fact you can change it from each day within a match day. So all these things are important, and that's, two different aspects that can impact your rank. Jesus, you see, already a voice crack. Should I get in Rafinha or Gallagher for Jota? Yeah, Path, I answered your question already and I went with Rafinha. Keep Alonso or -4 for double Chelsea. I'd probably keep Alonso, and if you're wildcarding next week, I don't see a need to take a hit for a Chelsea defender who may not even get a clean sheet. I would expect them to against Southampton, but you never know. Playing my wildcard in UCL, will you do wildcard stream at some point, match day 3? I'm actually considering using the wildcard considering how my team is, and I'll be making a team selection video and a deadline stream, but I probably will be confirming my transfers after the deadline. And it's actually crazy, so many people have very identical teams, and I think some people obviously look at the videos and they literally just copy the exact same 50-man squad, which obviously is something I'm not really used to, if I'm being honest, but it is what it is. No shouts on Aubameyang. I think he's a good option for the next few game weeks, but let's actually look at Arsenal's fixtures and I'll explain why I wouldn't be going for him. So if we look here, yeah, on paper Arsenal have good fixtures up until game week 20, but even then, some of these fixtures, like let's say for example Leicester away and Villa at home, they're not the easiest. I think Aubameyang can do well in them, mainly so in the Aston Villa game, but I just think there are just better choices elsewhere, with Lukaku up front for a similar price, even Jamie Vardy, who's been doing the goods, and in midfield, of course, you don't want to go without Salah, and I just think you can invest in better assets elsewhere. I'd rather have a Ben White, Tomiyasu, a Tierney, or even a Ramsdale. Up front with Arsenal, yeah, Aubameyang is probably the most consistent player, but he's just not someone I'm too sure about, to be honest. But look, he's still a good choice. And then when you look long term, look, Man United away, Everton away, yeah, not the greatest. Even West Ham at home is pretty tough. And then obviously a Man City at home a few games later. But of course, a lot of people would be bringing him in for maybe 3 to 5 game weeks and then move him on. But I'd just rather have Lukaku, really. And it'd be very difficult to fit in Salah, Lukaku, and then other players you want, like maybe Ronaldo or Trent, Cancelo, and all these players whilst having Aubameyang. But of course, he's a good option. I'm just not really too keen on him, to be honest. Any news on Shaw? Well, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't really help in the press conference today, but he basically said he's training and there's images of him training, and he apparently is ill or was ill on top of the injury he had. And once again, he pretty much said, let's wait and see if he can make it for the game. So nothing concrete, but there is a chance he features against Everton, and obviously that would be really good. Thank you, Kobe, for moderating the chat. Really appreciate it. Thoughts about Watkins? He's actually someone I highlighted after the performance against Chelsea when he first came back in game week 4, I believe. He looked so impressive and he made such a difference to Aston Villa, and I think he could be a good choice at 7.3 million long term. Aston Villa have some good fixtures coming up. I think Watkins is actually someone to consider for sure. No one's really talking about him at all. So when you're looking at strikers, and you don't really want to go for Jimenez or Armstrong, Maupay, say Maximan, and you want someone kind of long term, I think Watkins could actually be someone to consider. Of course, he hasn't really hit the ground running in terms of FPL points, but he's someone I'd definitely think about. Keep or sell Reguilon? I'd probably sell, but I mean, if we look at the fixtures this week, Aston Villa at home isn't the worst fixture in the world, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he got an assist in this fixture last season. But yeah, I'd still sell him. I think there are better choices elsewhere. You can go for Christensen, and maybe with a bit more money, you can get a Rudiger, maybe a Cancelo or a Diaz. So I'm not really too keen on him. If I activated my free hit and already took the -4 point hit, would it still deduct my points? No, it would cancel out the hit, so you don't lose any points. The same goes for a wild card. And trying to think, no, that's it. Those are the 2 chips that cancel out any hits you've taken. -4 hit for Trincao to ESR, Decore, Gallagher. I wouldn't take a -4 hit to get rid of Trincao this week. I know he didn't start recently, but I'd still not do that, in my opinion. I appreciate your opinions, knowledge on players in both UCL and FPL. Final decisions are mine, thanks. Yeah, no problem, Sharem. I definitely wasn't trying to insinuate you are one of them, but I've actually, seen a lot of examples, of people who actually do that sort of thing. But it's kind of common. People tend to copy. Anyone who makes a video or whatever, they might just copy the team, especially if they've seen they've got some decent ranks in the past. But yeah, that's obviously the kind of main intention. The discussion, generating ideas, and then ultimately, it's down to the viewer to come with their own decision. And I think that's best. That's the way to play the game. I would find it very boring to copy someone. Hola, mi hermano Dylan, says Kobe. Thank you very much. And good job, obviously, with the moderating. Thoughts on my final wildcard team: Ramsdale, Cancelo, Alonso, Rudiger, Rafinha, Sarr, Salah, Gallagher, Lukaku, Saint-Maximin, Antonio, bench, Foster, Townsend, Livramento, Trent. That's a really good team, and you've got Trent in there. You're going to keep him. He should be back by game week 8, and if not, game week 9. And of course, you won't lose any value there. What I'd be a bit concerned about possibly is Alonso, and that's something that's changed since my best wildcard team video because of the Champions League. But other than that, I think that's really solid. That's the only concern I'd have. And then Sarr, maybe in a few game weeks, possibly even in game week 8, you could get rid of for someone else. But that's a really good team, to be honest. Hi, Ronaldo, Lukaku for captaincy. If I had both, I'd probably be leaning towards Lukaku, but I actually think Ronaldo can do just as well, if not outscore Lukaku too. And they both have decent fixtures on paper. Any news on Antonio and Soufal? Not that I know of, to be honest, but Antonio, he came off quite early, but I don't think it's anything injury related. Better me to be manager of Man United than Solskjaer, says Alexa. Maybe, to be honest. He has done some good things though, with Luke Shaw, with Greenwood, and a few other players like Bruno Fernandes. But yeah, I just think with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he's got some good things about him, of course, but some people talk about him like he's someone who's not got that much experience, who's only in his 40s. He's got a lot of experience already in his managerial career, so he needs to be doing better. Guru says, Game Week 8 wildcard team: Ramsdale, Foster, Kelly, Livramento, Rudiger, Diaz, Cancelo. Thoughts, or should I do De Bruyne to Grealish? Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, De Bruyne to Grealish. I would rather have Grealish because of the value for money, and I just think with De Bruyne being so expensive, I'd rather spend it elsewhere. So yeah, I'd rather have Grealish. As for the rest of your team, it looks good. Obviously Kelly's a bench fodder option. I get that, but I would still rather have someone else, even a Brandon Williams who plays. Kelly, I mean, yeah, fair enough, but I don't know. I just think long term it might not be a good pick, of course, but that's just kind of nitpicking. Maupai's good for the next few game weeks. Beyond that, of course, he's someone you can rectify. Smith Rowe, obviously, looked really good against Spurs. I still got my doubts. He's not someone I'd go for. I'd probably rather have Townsend, but Arsenal have better fixtures, so I completely get that. Any news about Ferran Torres will start the next game? Honestly, no one knows with Pep, and yeah, at the moment he's just not starting in the Premier League. So anyone who has him, obviously a big shame, but I couldn't tell you that for sure. I think he'll definitely start one of the next 2 games, and if he doesn't, then that's just a definite kind of red flag. Definitely get rid of him. But against Liverpool anyway, I'm not too sure if he is going to start. Hi Dylan, thoughts on Matty Cash? He looks really good, and once again, talking about Aston Villa, they've got some good fixtures coming up, and he's looking so offensive. Against Manchester United, he made a really good cross, target missed an open goal pretty much, and of course he scored his first goal against Everton, I believe. So yeah, he's looking really impressive at the moment, but of course there are so many different choices like Christensen around a similar price, so a lot of people won't be going for Matty Cash, but he could be a good one. Don't you think it's too much to get free players from Man United and Liverpool in your team? Well, this is something I've had from Game Week 1, and I've been doing pretty well so far this season. It's not something I want long term, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with it heading into Game Week 7, but going into Game Week 8 and beyond, yeah, it's something that I definitely don't want to have. Man United have some poor fixtures coming up, and Liverpool, of course, they do face City now, but it's not something I'm really concerned about, and I will be wildcarding either this game week or in Game Week 8, but I am leaning towards saving it for Game Week 8, looking at the international break, see what happens, be prepared for any injuries or quarantine rules or whatever, and have an advantage over those managers who played it earlier or in Game Week 7. Vardy or Ronaldo, who to captain? I'd be tempted by Vardy, but I'd still probably go for Ronaldo. I mean, look, Vardy's been in really good form, and against Palace, he's done pretty decent over the last few years, but yeah, I mean, remember his Eagle celebration, but yeah, I'd probably go for Ronaldo. If you want a differential, though, Vardy could be really good. Thanks for the great info, Dylan. Thank you, Jeremy. Evening, Dylan, your thoughts on Wolves' assets? I think they're still good up until Game Week 14. Once again, a Wolves defender like Saiss, Semedo, Marçal, Cody, and then a striker like Jimenez, that would be my preference, having probably 1 or 2 of them. And as for the midfielders, I'm just not too sure about them. I think they're too inconsistent. Adama Traore tends to underperform, and he's not even been starting, or at least he didn't in Game Week 6. And obviously the same goes for Trincao. But yeah, I'd probably still rather go for their defenders. They're good options up until game week 14. On a wildcard, though, I don't know if I'd go for any of them, honestly, but still. And obviously, Jose Sarr as a goalkeeper. He's someone I highlighted in, I think, my best game week 5 wildcard team, and he's now one of the highest scoring goalkeepers in the game. Of course, that assist he got for Jimenez's goal definitely inflated that, but yeah, obviously, he is a good choice. Evening, Dylan. On wildcard, Saka, Gallagher and Christensen, or Smith Rowe, Sarr and Rudiger? That's a tough question. I think as a trio overall, I think long term I'd rather go for the first set of players, but obviously heading into the next few game weeks, or at least in game week 7, Smith Rowe, Sarr and Rudiger look better. I mean, I think Sarr could do really well in game week 7, but long term not too sure. No offense taken, good and positive streams. Thanks, Dylan. Thank you, Cherie, and good luck obviously with UCL Fantasy and FPL. Will Ronaldo and Greenwood start tomorrow? What do you think? I think both of them will start. And Greenwood actually looked pretty decent in the Champions League, but yeah, it's kind of difficult at the moment. They're not really... Sometimes it's Greenwood not passing to Ronaldo, and then sometimes it's Ronaldo not passing to Greenwood, but I think they can work together. Once Sancho hits form and Rashford comes into the mix, that's when you'd see Greenwood being benched more often. But for the time being, I still expect him to start, and he actually offers a lot of threat, possibly even the most threat for Manchester United, at least over the course of a game. With Ronaldo's quality, he just needs one chance and he can get the goal. But Greenwood always seems to be one of the most threatening, if not the most. But I think they both will. Keep or sell Ronaldo and Jota? I'd keep Ronaldo this week and I'd possibly sell Jota. If you don't have Rafinha, that could actually be a good move. I'm thinking of it myself. Let me actually show you lot. So what I could do in terms of my transfers is do either Luke Shaw or Trent to Rudiger, and if not, Jota to Rafinha. The reason why I wouldn't do both is because that would require a -4 hit. Any info about Shaw? Once again, like I talked about before, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was talking about Shaw being ill as well as injured. Obviously, he's recovering. There's images of him in training. He could make the game, but he wasn't really letting anything on, and there is a chance he does miss out. I took a -4 this week for Gallagher and Aspie in, and next week I'm planning to transfer in Cancelo and Lukaku. What do you think about this strategy? Yeah, I think that's fine, to be honest. Look, I'm not really a big fan of hits, but I think that could actually be the right thing to do, to be honest. Yo, how did you get on in UCL? I got 106 points. I played my Limitless, and yeah, otherwise, I don't even want to think about how many points I would have gotten if I hadn't played it. I probably would have been in the 40s or 50s, and I'd still be struggling. Welcome, the Flying Dutchman. Thank you for joining in. Wildcard team: Ramsdale, Cancelo, Diaz, Rudiger, Azpilicueta, Salah, Saka, Gallagher, Rafinha, Jimenez, Lukaku, and Antonio. That's a really good team, to be honest. And in terms of weaknesses, once again, I'm not too sold on Saka myself, but I think he can do well. And Anna says, hey Dylan, my wildcard team is Foster, Raya, Diaz, Cancelo, Rudiger, Alonso, Livramento, Brownhill, Sarr, Rafinha, Grealish next game week, Salah, Smith Rowe, Jimenez, Antonio, Lukaku. I'd probably be tempted to go for Ramsdale over Raya, but of course, Brentford have been looking decent defensively other than game week 6. I'd still go for Ramsdale though, and the rest looks really good. Alonso is kind of a bit of a concern, so you could maybe go for Azpilicueta or Diaz. Well, you've already got Diaz actually. But yeah, maybe Christensen actually. I think he could be good. I like the double City and double Chelsea. I think that could be really good in the defence. And the midfield's fine, to be honest. I wouldn't... Yeah, I get why you would get Grealish in for Rafinha because of the quarantine rules. Sarr is another one. So once, obviously, Rafinha comes back in game week 9 or 10, you could then get rid of Sarr and bring Rafinha back. But yeah, that looks like a solid plan. Welcome to all new viewers. Do you think Curtis Jones will keep his place? I think so, based on recent performances. But what Liverpool could do, and they did this last season against Manchester City in a 1-1 draw at the Etihad, they could play the front four. They could play Diego Jota up front. They could play Salah and Mane on the wings and Firmino as the attacking midfielder. Soufal or Duffy? That's a good question. I'd rather go for Soufal this week. -4 for Trent and Bamford to Jimenez and Cancelo. That would make sense, but then again, you know, if you're not wildcarding, you'd want to have Trent back basically by game week 8 or 9, pretty much. But I get why you want to do it, and I would just about lean towards doing it, but you don't have to take the hit. Thank you, the Flying Dutchman. Hey Dylan, I just joined your stream. How are you? And hope you're feeling better. I am feeling better. I'm still struggling a bit. That's why I'm going a bit slow today, so apologies for that. I'm trying my absolute best to go through all the comments as well. But yeah, I am feeling better. Thank you very much, and hopefully you're doing really well too. And good luck with this game week. Is it still worth holding on to Ings? I'd probably still... Look, he's got good fixtures coming up and he can do well, but I'd rather get someone else. Like, if you don't have Antonio already, I'd definitely make the switch. And I'd rather maybe have Watkins based on what I'm seeing. What about Son as a differential captain? If I had him, I would be very tempted to captain. But once again, you know, looking at it logically, looking at how Spurs are attacking and the fact they're struggling to score more than one goal other than in the Conference League, that would put me off and I'd probably still go for someone else. Kane as a punt after international break, yeah. I mean, I can understand why, and it's not like, you know, historically he is a punt. We know what he's capable of, but still, it is a tough one. If you still have Lukaku and you have Salah, you've got kind of some of the main premiums covered with the good fixtures, then yeah, I'd be tempted by going for Salah and possibly, you know, captaining him. Thank you very much to Wanja Joe for becoming a differential, joining the membership. Really appreciate it. And now that's 3 members we have: Rock and Roll, Rodrigo Arias, and Wanja. So thank you very much, fellow Arsenal fan, I believe. So, you know, welcome to the channel, and obviously thank you for the support. And you know, I appreciate any, you know, extra, you know, bonus support that you lot give, but you don't have to, of course. But obviously, very, very humbled by it. Thank you for answering everyone's questions. It's so helpful. No problem. I try my best. Obviously, sometimes, you know, when you get hundreds of viewers, that it could be really difficult, but I do try my best. Do you think Ronaldo is a must-have on a wildcard as his ownership is so high, or do you think I should go for a cheaper option? Because of the fixtures and because of the alternatives, I don't think he's a must-have. Of course, Ronaldo can do well against anyone. He can even get some double-digit returns in some of these fixtures, but will you be captaining them or captaining him for them? I don't think so. So I would just probably go without him on a wildcard and then bring him back in around game week 14 or 15. Just try to have the extra spare money in the bank to get him back. Sell Jota for Rafinha or keep for Watford? Ooh, yeah, but then again, Rafinha is playing Watford now. I mean, the kind of worrying thing about this situation is that Firmino hasn't actually gone to the Brazilian national team. He hasn't been called up. So there's no guarantee that Jota plays against Watford. And then when you look at Rafinha, he could miss out in game week 8 because he's been called up by Brazil. So it's a difficult situation. I think for game week 7, it's definitely a no-brainer. It's a transfer I'm thinking of making. But I'm not even too sure if Jota starts against Watford. Will he even, you know, need to start to get a lot of points? Maybe not, but you would want that. I think long-term anyway, I'd rather have Rafinha. So I'd probably go for it, especially if you have nothing else to do. What's your opinion on Jota to Rafinha for a hit? Really don't fancy Jota with Firmino back. Ooh, for a hit, I'm not too sure, but I think it could still pay off at least this game week, and then obviously long term it would. The main kind of problem with that would be Rafinha possibly missing out in game week 8. That could be a big issue, but other than that, I think it might be worth a hit, to be honest. I still have 1.2 million in the bank to bring back Trent on later on. Yeah, that's fine, Vishal, and that's fine. Obviously, it's a good wildcard team you put. Sell Jota for Rafinha for a hit or keep for Watford next week. Yeah. Malpai, say Maximan. I'd still rather have, say, Maximan, and Malpai and Brighton's fixtures turn for the worse very soon. Same with Newcastle, but I'd probably rather have, say, Maximan. Ferran or Grealish for City's run from game week 8 to 10. Probably Grealish because he's more nailed. But if Ferran played the same amount, I'd probably go for him. Would make some wildcard teams for us. I did make a wildcard team, actually, on Monday. I've got a video out where I actually show the best wildcard team. The only difference or changes I would make is possibly either downgrade Alonso to a cheap defender like Duffy or maybe Williams, for example, and then upgrade one of the strikers to Tony, or maybe just move him on to Diaz or Azpilicueta. So yeah, pretty much nothing else would change. How's Rafinha as captain? He's you know, that could be a decent differential, to be honest. It's not something I'd go for myself, but that could be really good. Would you sell Shaw and Trent for Rudiger and Aspi? If it was for 2 free transfers, then yes, I would. I probably would, yeah. That seems really good. I've transferred Alonso and Rafinha in for Reguilon and Torres. Good moves. Didn't go for Rudiger. Obviously, maybe we're overreacting with Alonso. I just think that there's a bit more doubts surrounding him and his starting berth ahead of game week 7. But, of course, if he does start, then that would be the better move. And assuming you have a wildcard in game week 8, you can always bring Rudiger back in later on. Apologies, a little water break. I need them. I definitely need them at the moment. Yogesh says Ramsdale, Foster, Rudiger, Alonso, White, Veltman, Livramento, Benrahma, Salah, Rafinha, Doucouré, Douglas Luiz, Antonio, CR7, Lukaku. Wildcard this week? I don't think you have to wildcard this week, to be honest. You could just hold it for game week 8. Now look, just to kind of address the elephant in the room, I think wildcarding in Game Week 7 is perfectly fine and acceptable, and it could even be better than wildcarding in Game Week 8. The reason why I'd be tempted to wildcard in Game Week 8 is because of the international break. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with the quarantine rules. Let's say, for example, on a wildcard this week, you bring in Rafinha, and then he's called up to Brazil. I mean, he is anyway, but then that means he's definitely missing out in Game Week 8, and you might be kind of tempted to move him on to someone else, especially considering if you have another injury or more suspensions or quarantines in your squad, and that would maybe deplete you and leave you down to the bare bones. You might even be struggling to field 11. Obviously, it's unlikely for that to happen, but it's still possible. And with players like Rafinha, what you could do potentially is, if you wildcard in Game Week 8, you could not go for him if he is missing out in Game Week 8. You could go for someone else who has a really good fixture for that game week specifically, or maybe just has really good long-term fixtures anyway. And also, what you could also do is benefit from those players in Game Week 7, like Sarr, who has a really good fixture. Because, let's face it, if you're wildcarding this week, you probably would include Sarr. But long-term, is he that good of an option? I'm not too sure. Looking at the fixtures and just judging by how inconsistent Watford are. So the benefit of wildcarding Game Week 8, obviously, is the international break. You have another week worth of information. And also you can navigate some injuries, suspensions, COVID and all of that happens ahead of Game Week 8, and you can benefit from players like Greenwood and Sarr who could do really well in Game Week 7 and then move them on once the fixtures turn for both of them. But that's obviously just my opinion about it. There's no right or wrong, and I think they're both good. Is Rafinha not starting Game Week 8? This is the thing, like, obviously we don't know this for sure yet, but based on the quarantine rules, he's going to a red list country in Brazil. He probably would have to quarantine, but if there is a change or an amendment or something, a statement from the Premier League and the clubs, there might be a possibility of him still starting in Game Week 8, but it's just something to consider, of course. Do you think Soufal's going to start? I'll be honest, I don't know too much about that situation. I haven't heard much of what Moyes said about that. So, obviously, there's not much more that we're going to know other than what Moyes has said, unless there's an inside source at the club. So honestly, I don't know about that. Should I transfer Jimenez and Lukaku for Bamford and Ronaldo? For 2 free transfers, I'd say yes, but even then, you could just do Bamford to Jimenez and keep Ronaldo for this week. I think Ronaldo could do just as well, if not better than Lukaku, like I said before. ESR and Sanchez or Gallagher and Foster? That's a tough one. Foster is mainly just your second goalkeeper, so assuming he's just your second keeper and you've already got another one, I'd go for Gallagher and Foster. But if this is for your first choice, then I'd probably just go for Smith Rowe and Sanchez. Jimenez and Grealish or Vardy Doucouré? I'd go for Jimenez and Grealish. I use my wildcard Game Week 4, fair enough. I mean, yeah, there's no right or wrong time to play the wildcard. I just prefer to use it after at least we have a few game weeks, gone by, like 7, 8 potentially. But yeah, I mean, you can still wildcard early and do really well from it. Should I get Rafinha in for Greenwood or Jota? If you're wildcarding in Game Week 8, then I'd definitely do it for Jota, because I can see Greenwood outscoring Jota this week based on the fixture. And also, Jota might not even start. Should I sell Jota or Gray? If I sell one of them between Saka, Rafinha, Benrahma or someone else, who is the best replacement? Oof, that's a tough one. Yeah, once again, if you're wildcarding in Game Week 8, I'd definitely get rid of Jota. And even then, because Firmino's back, you probably would rather have Gray who's a bit more nailed than Jota. So, yeah, I'd probably do that. And if I sell one of them between Saka, Rafinha, Benrahma or someone else, who's the best replacement? This is a tough question because you have some good options like Rafinha. He's the best long-term option that I'd recommend. Maybe Gallagher, I think. It could be a really good choice. And obviously Saka, in terms of the fixtures, he's got some good ones coming up. Well, your transfer plans this week, I put a poll out. Let's actually check the results, what people have been saying. And yeah, we'll see what people have said. So my possible transfers are Shaw to Rudiger, Alexander-Arnold to Rudiger, so very similar, and if not, Jota to Rafinha. So one of those transfers, I only have one free transfer available, and in terms of what you guys have voted for so far, 55% of you have said Shaw to Rudiger is the way to go. So keep Trent Alexander-Arnold, keep the value, and even if you wildcard in Game Week 8, keep him pretty much, and just have him ready for later on. So yeah, that I can completely understand that, and there is a chance of Luke Shaw starting, and I wouldn't want to sell him, I guess, ahead of Everton. But then again, United barely keep clean sheets at the moment, and Shaw isn't getting too many attacking returns, but of course, that could easily change in Game Week 8. Let's see if he even starts in Game Week 7. Best 1 week punt in defence, Chilwell or Tierney, or maybe Burnley defender. I think Chilwell is a very risky pick. Obviously, it is a punt, and that is the point of it. Chilwell could be an exceptional one. He could basically take Alonso's role and get that double-digit return that he tends to do. Other than that, I mean, yeah, I completely get that. A Burnley defender, maybe Lowton would be someone I'd consider, potentially. I think Semedo against Newcastle, I mean, is he a punt? Maybe not necessarily, but if you don't have Semedo, and you want a defender coming in who's got a really good fixture, I think Semedo would be the kind of main one I'd target. Or Roman Saiss, I think he could be really good. And he has actually probably got the most goal threat from the Wolves defenders. So I'd go for one of them. I'd maybe go for Creswell or well, not Soufal because of the injury doubts surrounding him, but I think Creswell against Brentford's another one. And if not, Lowton against Norwich. And of course, you've got the Chelsea defenders. Any one of them, they're not even punts, they're just really good picks. Chilwell would be a punt though. Makes sense for me to take a -4 hit for a second Chelsea defender, sell Trent, and next week can get Lukaku for Antonio with no hits. Already have Rudiger. Do I get Alonso, Christensen, or Aspi? Normally I'd say Alonso based on what we've seen so far this season, but because I've got some doubts surrounding him, and that's obviously my opinion, I could be wrong about it, I'd actually be going for Christensen. But Azpilicueta is the most nailed of the three. Let's not get it, twisted. I think he's the most nailed, but because of value for money, I'd rather go for Christensen. Is Harvey Barnes a good option? Not, in my opinion, no, because Leicester have been so poor this season so far, and yeah, I think there's just better choices elsewhere like Rafinha, and I just wouldn't be going for him at the moment. I need to see a bit of form from him and Leicester before kind of investing in him, and I had him from Game Week 1 actually. What do you think of Tierney for Tsimikas for Game Week 7? Trent, Rudiger, Ayling, Veltman, Tsimikas. In my defence, I have one free transfer left of 0.9 million, wildcard in Game Week 8 or 10. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would probably be thinking about Tierney, but honestly, considering the players you have, I would rather go for Christensen over Tierney. Lukaku's going to make me so many points, potentially. You never know, though. He hasn't been in great form recently, but I think he will do really well, and I'll be bringing him in on a wild card. How about Conte's comments on Chelsea not knowing how to use Lukaku? That's interesting. I mean, to be honest, he might have a point. Compared to how he used him, and I think he definitely got the best out of Lukaku, he might have a point, but he's just come into the league. He struggled a lot when he was in the Premier League before with Manchester United and also with Chelsea. But of course, he's got a good record in the Premier League overall, and he can definitely do well there. Evening, Dylan. Ronaldo, Lukaku to captain. I currently have both. Is having both a good idea for the next 2 weeks? Cheers. I think so, potentially, because even against Leicester away, I think Manchester United can do pretty well. And I would be captaining Lukaku, but Ronaldo, there's nothing wrong with him, and I think he could do really well this week as well. Soufal was so popular at the start of the season, it's all gone downhill. Yeah, but a lot of the players who did well last season, they're not really replicating it this time round, and the same went with last season. The ones who did well 2 campaigns ago, they didn't really do that well last season. That's why it makes it more interesting and just harder to predict in general. Rudiger, Cancelo, or Diaz? I'd probably say Rudiger because of the fixtures, but Cancelo at the moment, if he's nailed, he's a fantastic choice up until Game Week 18, to be honest, and even actually beyond that, up until Game Weeks 22, 23. So I like all of them. Considering, assuming Cancelo, continues to start, I'd say he's my favourite of the 3. But looking up until Game Week 14, because of the fixtures, Rudiger is probably my pick. Thinking of letting Trent go after the international break and bringing Man City player Cancelo. Man City is more solid defensively. That is one option you can go for. Another one is going big at the back, having Trent, having Cancelo and Rudiger, and then you could possibly fill the rest of your defence with Livramento and cheap options. Hey mate, hope you're feeling better. Really admire your determination to get videos out when you don't need to. Feeling really happy. Oh Jesus, really happy with Arsenal, and the football was really impressed with the flow. Yeah, I was surprised, to be honest, and yeah, I mean, it was an exceptional first half performance. I wasn't too impressed with the second half, but I can understand it being 3-0 up, game management, and Spurs were always gonna be a bit more offensive and try to put on a response. But yeah, the first half was exceptional, and thank you very much, Marco. I am feeling better, but as you can still tell, my voice is still strained, and yeah, that's why I've been taking breaks. And of course, we've got an international break coming up, so this is a good time, I guess, after this stream and possibly the reaction if I can do that too, I'll be taking a few days off, and I'll also be setting up new stuff. Obviously, stay tuned for future videos to see, some upgrades that I'm going to be making to the videos and to my setup. But yeah, in terms of determination to get the videos out, the main thing is obviously talking to the community, generating ideas for everyone, and yeah, that's the main thing. It's fun, and I enjoy it. That's why I do it. So yeah. I wouldn't say it's too much determination, but obviously I appreciate the kind words. Hopefully more of the same versus Brighton. I have white too. I think Brighton's going to be a really tough game. Same with Aston Villa in a few game weeks' time. And even though the fixtures look good for Arsenal, they're not as easy, I think, as they seem on paper. And I think Xhaka being out for a long period of time could actually be a big blow. How was your health, and especially your voice? I mean, my health is fine. It was nothing serious, but still, I've been feeling drowsy, headaches, sore throat. Pretty much I had no voice at one point, and all of that. But I'm feeling better, and should be good in a few days. So it's nothing serious. And yeah, my voice is hanging on. I'll be honest, I'm struggling today even, but it's much better than it was, I'd say, yesterday or even on Wednesday. How about Thiago Silva for a punt? Not in my opinion. I just stick to Rudiger, maybe Azpilicueta, and probably Christensen. But you know what? I still like Alonso as an option, and Reece James when he's back. Thank you very much to Yorang, another new member. Obviously, we've got 2 new members in this live stream, so really appreciate it, of course. Remember, you can sign up for exclusive bonuses and also just to support the channel even further. You don't have to, of course, and it's completely down to you. And the content will always be free regardless. But thank you very much, Yorang. Really appreciate it. Let's see. I'll try to go through the questions I missed out. Apologies if I have missed out. And I am going slower than usual. I do realise that. Will Ronaldo drop in price? I don't think so. That could be something that happens in a few game weeks' time. But honestly, I don't think so. Thoughts on Antonio captain? It ended up being the right decision last week. And once again, it could be the same thing. If Brentford play that sort of open style that they did against Liverpool and we have a really open game, then I think Antonio could do really well and he'd definitely be an ideal captaincy shout. Saka or Rafinha for this week? Definitely Rafinha, and just in general I prefer Rafinha. I already did Shaw to Rudiger to save 0.2 million from price rises and drops. Then Trent news came in. Now stuck with Trent, Ayling, Rudiger, Livramento and Andrew. Use Wildcard or Trent out for a -4 and play Livramento. Yeah, it's not an ideal situation. If you're thinking of wildcarding in Game Week 8 anyway, you could just wildcard now, but I can kind of relate to your situation now. I can understand why you'd probably want to use it in Game Week 8 because of the international break having an extra week of information, and also you see who's injured, who is going to be quarantining, and you have an advantage over those managers who used it before. But yeah, taking a hit to get Trent out, who you probably want to get back in on a wildcard anyway, and if not, very soon afterwards. It's a difficult one, to be honest. I'd say if you're, definitely going to be wildcarding in Game Week 8, I might just play it now in your situation, but there's no right or wrong there. You could always take a -4 and it can pay off, but because it's a defender, I wouldn't be keen on that. Force on getting Mount instead of double Chelsea defence on a wildcard. I'd still rather go for double Chelsea defence. Look, Mount and Havertz are my favourite options in midfield from Chelsea, but I think the Chelsea defenders just offer far better value. And also, Mount isn't completely nailed, same with Havertz, and the only nailed Chelsea attacker really is Lukaku. Yeah, the Flying Dutchman, yeah, exactly. I'd probably use the wildcard now, but taking a hit isn't the end of the world, to be honest. Ronaldo or Antonio for captain? At the moment, I'm going for Ronaldo, but I think Antonio's a really good choice this week. It obviously depends mainly on how the two teams set up. If it's an open game, I think Antonio could have a field day. But if Brentford are more resilient and they're more defensive, that's where I could see Antonio struggling potentially. Jota replacements, not Rafinha. I think if you're looking for the kind of cheaper options, I think Gallagher's a really good one. Potentially Saka, and still one of the Everton guys, in my opinion, like Townsend or Gray. But honestly, I would just be completely clear with you. This is why I'm not too keen on playing the wildcard just yet, because, yeah, we've had 7 game weeks worth of data and there's a lot of options popping up. But I'm not completely sure on some of these midfielders. And I've talked about this before. The only kind of midfielders I'd be really nailed on my wildcard are Salah and Rafinha. The other 3, I think, are up for grabs. So it's a difficult situation. Greenwood, Torres and Jota, they were looking really good at the beginning of the season, but not too sure about them now because of rotation and new players coming back for all of those clubs. And obviously Sarr, he's one that I actually like a lot in terms of value for money and what he's produced so far and the underlying stats. The problem with him is the fixtures and Watford are really inconsistent, so it's hard to make a solid case for him and back him over so many others like Gallagher, who have good form, have good fixtures, and could possibly do really well. But then again, do you have enough confidence in him doing really well in the long term to replace these options like Jota? I'm not too sure, but obviously they're cheap options, and that's why I'm heavily considering going big at the back, to be honest, on a wild card. Apologies for these long water breaks, but yeah, I want to remove Shaw for Christensen. What do you think? I think that's a really good move, to be honest. Maybe this week, obviously if Shaw starts, he could do well, but long term, I think that's a good move. Post-Juve game, not confident on Alonso. In fact, probably Chilwell will play, in my opinion, but even then, that is a doubt. So I feel that I can have one defender for 1 week, may as well get the other Chelsea fullback, think he's nailed. Yeah, I get that, to be honest, and even then, yeah, Azpilicueta and Rudiger, they're the two main nailed players, of course, and Christensen offers really good value, especially if Reece James is out for several weeks, which he should be, to be honest. It looks like he's a big doubt for the England call-up. Should I add Southampton attack? The fixtures are good after the Chelsea game. I've talked about Armstrong before as a long-term option, especially as a replacement for some of these players like Tony, who've got some difficult fixtures coming up. And he's a decent choice. You could maybe go for him and maybe Elyounoussi and all these players. But the problem I have with Southampton really is just I don't trust them enough offensively and as a team. Livramento, of course, is exceptional value at the back. But looking at their midfielders and attackers is a different story. They can be good. They're, of course, cheap, good enablers. But I'd want to see a bit more from them first before investing, if I'm being completely honest. Sell Greenwood for Rafinha and use the extra million left for Ayling to Alonso -4. Hit our wildcard in game week 8 or 10. Oof. To be honest, yeah. Even though, even if you use the wildcard in game week 8, I think that hit could actually be worth it, and long term it's really good. Once again, though, with Alonso, I'd be a bit cautious because of what happened against Juventus in the Champions League. Who got substituted around half time, and we just don't know if Alonso will definitely start every single game like he's been doing so far this season. But you could always go for Rudiger instead, or Azpilicueta, and maybe even a City defender. But of course, if you're wildcarding in game week 8 or 10, it probably makes more sense to get a Chelsea one. Christensen -4. Depends who you get rid of. I'm guessing it's for Ayling, Trent or Shaw, but long term it could be good, to be honest. Is Grealish a good option? I think so, but once again with him, he's not really my ideal sort of player FPL wise. I don't think he's that consistent in terms of goal output, especially with actual goals, but he is a good option with the fixtures. Will Jota start? I think there's a chance he doesn't. Obviously, it's really difficult for me to say, but yeah. Sorry, mate, in the train at the moment, bad connection. Hope to make the next stream. No problem, the Flying Dutchman. Obviously, really appreciate you making it here. And I'm obviously trying my very best to continue anyway. Jota to Rafinha or Trent to Aspi. I may not wildcard until game week 13 or 15. I'd probably rather do Jota to Rafinha. If you had the budget to choose Rudiger or Aspi, I'd go for Rudiger. I think Jota will start, fair enough, and hopefully he does if I keep him in my team, to be honest. Buy Rudiger for a -4 for Reece James or play Livramento versus Chelsea. If you've already played a wildcard, I'd just take the hit and long term it will pay off. Buy under 5.5 million defender instead of Ayling or play Manquillo and buy Sarr, wildcard in game week 8 planned. Ooh, that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, under 5.5 million defender, I'd mainly be looking at Christensen once again. You could actually do that. I'd rather get Christensen in for Ayling if you haven't got him already. And Mark thinks that Jota will start. To be honest, he could. It's a difficult one. He's been starting all these games. The way you can see it is he needs a rest at some point, but we've got an international break coming up, so it's a tough one. He could start, but there's just that slight chance that he doesn't. And obviously, Firmino's 2 goals against Porto doesn't help things. Rudiger, Christensen, Trent, or Cancelo, Rudiger, Reece James. I'd probably go for Rudiger, Christensen, and Trent, but I really like Cancelo, if I'm being honest. Mate, you might have to take a hit. I don't think so, to be honest, because I don't mind playing Ben White. Let's say, for example, Luke Shaw is fit and available. Then I can just bench Trent and I can play White. And that would give me the possibility of potentially playing 4 at the back, or if not, doing Jota to Rafinha. So I don't think I need to take a hit. Alonso play game week 7. There's a chance that Chilwell does. If you're asking me, based on what happened, I think that it's actually 50-50. I think Chilwell could actually start, to be honest. It's not something I'm completely sure about, as you can tell. But it's just because of that kind of headache that's surrounding Alonso and Chilwell, I'm probably going to be avoiding him for now. Can I keep Trent? Definitely. I think long term he's a hold. You don't have to have him though. I don't think he's absolutely essential, especially with Cancelo. You've got Rudiger, Alonso if he continues to start, and you've got others like Diaz. There's so many choices. Play Torres. I'd probably sell him, to be honest, but long term he could actually pay off the patience. That's the thing with him. But against Liverpool, I'm just not too sure. Obviously, he can do well. Tomiyasu and Grealish or Diaz and Benrahma on Wildcard, please help. I think Diaz is a set and forget. I'd rather have him over Tomiyasu, Grealish or Benrahma, obviously. Diaz and Benrahma. I'm guessing you have Rafinha anyway. Obviously, I'd definitely say Diaz and Rafinha, for example. But Benrahma, not too sure. I'd rather have Antonio up front, if I'm being completely honest. Tomiyasu is a good, decent option, but I'd just rather have Diaz. Was Arsenal win a fluke? Was so surprised by Arsenal playing like they used to under Wenger. I don't know, it's early days. Arsenal just played Norwich and Burnley, and then they've played Tottenham, and in the Cup they played Wimbledon. So it's difficult to say. They've got a bit of form going, but there's always something that happens with Arsenal, and in this moment, it's Xhaka being injured, so that could disrupt things, to be honest. But I don't know about if it's a fluke. What I'd be questioning is, can they sustain this level of performance for a prolonged period of time? And it also has to do with how open Spurs were, how tactically naive the whole team were, to be honest, and also just not. I think Nuno just came in with the wrong approach, so it's a bit of everything, to be honest. But Arsenal did deserve the win; they deserve credit. I'm not sure if they're going to be doing that every single week, and I think they'll struggle potentially to Brighton and Aston Villa coming up. Best option to replace Jota and have 1.1 in the bank, definitely Rafinha if you don't have him already, but obviously if you do have him, then it becomes a bit more difficult. Gray or Pogba, who to bench? I'd probably bench Gray, but I wouldn't want to bench either of them, to be honest. How's this wildcard side for this game week? Lukaku, Antonio Vardy, Salah, Rafinha, Benrahma. Yeah, I like Benrahma for this game week, but long term I'm not too sure, to be honest, Aranya. So, with a wild card, I'm mainly looking medium to long term. A few 1 week punts is fine, and then you can obviously, change things about. Another thing to consider with your wild card is Rafinha could miss out in game week 8 because of international duty and quarantine rules. I like your defense a lot, though. I will say that I like that defense. That's a really good one, and there's not really any weaknesses there. Maybe Manquillo isn't ideal. I'd rather have Duffy, of course, but he's cheaper. I get why you've got him. And as for the rest of your midfield, is fine. Smith Rowe, another one just like Saka. I'm not completely sold on him, but he can do well for you. And I like your attack a lot. Lukaku, Antonio Vardy looks exceptionally strong. Do you think Ramsdale and Leno... Oh my god. Oh, Jesus Christ. Fucking hell. Apologies for that. Do you think Ramsdale and Leno will be rotated? I don't think so for the time being, but it's something that could happen. If Ramsdale has a bad performance or Leno plays really well in the Cups, it could happen. But at the moment, I just don't see it happening. What is your transfers? Well, at the moment, I'm considering either doing Trent or Shaw to Rudiger, and if not, Jota to Rafinha. So very simple. It's something that I'll probably leave close to the deadline. At the moment, I'm leaning towards getting Rudiger in for the defence, but I don't know. Because if there's a chance of Shaw starting, and there is, I don't know if I'd want to get rid of him ahead of the Everton game. I think United can do well, and Shaw could get a decent score. But then again, he's been letting me down a lot at the moment. Who do you support, Dylan? I support Arsenal. United look very inconsistent, exactly, and obviously on a wild card, I wouldn't actually have none of their assets. And obviously, when they have that really good fixture run from Game Week 15 onwards, that's when I'd want Ronaldo and possibly another one. It obviously depends on if their defence is looking solid, then you could maybe go for Shaw at that time. But yeah, at the moment, I wouldn't want to have any of them other than Ronaldo. I have Trent, Shaw and James. Should I wildcard now or next week? Oof, that's a tough one. If you have two decent defender options like Ben White, for example, and Cody or someone like that, you could just make one free transfer and get a Chelsea defender. And even then, Shaw could play, so it's not the end of the world. However, if you don't, and you'd have to take hits to field the starting 11, then I would probably just take the wild card. Transfer out Ayling and Ronaldo for Christensen and Lukaku, I probably would, to be honest. Then again, though, if you can afford Ayling to Christensen without doing the Ronaldo move, I'd probably do that instead, because Ronaldo can do well. Thiago Silva for Ayling, no money for Rudiger. I'd rather go for Christensen over Thiago Silva. I think he's more nailed than Thiago Silva. What are you going to do? Trent, Shaw and Ayling are out. Yeah, once again, I'll probably get Rudiger in from one of my defenders. And if not, it'll be Jota to Rafinha. And Shaw isn't out for sure, to be honest. Is the deadline today or tomorrow? It's tomorrow. It's just I tend to do these on Friday because that's what the people tend to vote for. And I also do a reaction stream on the Saturday. I may not be able to because I am ill at the moment, but I will try my best to do a reaction stream either tomorrow or on Sunday. And possibly with a new setup as well, like I alluded to earlier. Yeah, Yorang says Trent, Rudiger, Ayling, Veltman, Tsimikas, Greenwood, Adama, Benrahma, Brownhill, Salah, Antonio, Ronaldo, Jimenez. 3 on my defence won't play. Have 0.9 million left. Suggestions for transfers. If you have a wild card, it actually could be a good time to use it, to be honest, especially with your defender situation, which is a bit similar to mine. With 0.9 million in the bank, that's an interesting one. I'd probably do Adama to Rafinha. That is, if you had to make one free transfer, and if not, you want to focus on your defence, that's the weak link at the moment, then you could do, for example, Ayling to Christensen. That could also be another one. So the way I see it, Ayling to Christensen or Adama to... Then again, Adama has Newcastle, and if he starts, he could do alright, but I don't like him as an asset, if I'm being honest, as you can tell. And I think Rafinha could easily outscore him. Apologies for the voice crack. I'd probably do one of those transfers, to be honest. I wildcarded this week, Ramsdale, Foster, yeah, apologies if I don't read out the whole team, by the way. It's just I'm trying to save my voice and be efficient in that way. Obviously, in future streams, I will read out the whole comments. So this is by Eternal. Yeah, wildcarding this week. Semedo looks really good for Game Week 7 specifically, and up until Game Week 14. Elianusi, someone I mentioned before, he's a decent choice, to be honest, and he could be better than Armstrong. I like this team a lot. Obviously, I'm not completely convinced about some of these midfielders like Saka and Elianusi, but they could actually be two of the best around their price. I think that's fine, to be honest. And yeah, one thing you could consider possibly is getting yet another Chelsea or City defender and going really big at the back, but you don't have to be honest. And Jimenez is good for the next few game weeks, and then possibly you can move him to Watkins or someone else like Tony in a few game weeks time, so that looks really good. And then this team is Sanchez, White, Cody, Rudiger, Ronaldo. This is my team, and I've used my wildcard in Game Week 4. Can you choose between Aspi, Rudiger, and Rafinha, Saka? Oh, okay. I'd go for Rudiger and Rafinha. So Rafinha, Saka, for me it's a no-brainer. Rafinha's a better option. And Aspi, Rudiger, that's a bit tight. I'd probably still go for Rudiger. I just lost hope from Shaw, so he left the team this week. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, he has been really poor, to be honest. I can't wait to get rid of him. Hey, Dylan, I've got 2 free transfers. Transfer something I'm doing. Trent, Jota, Fernandez. Oh, yeah, this is the thing. Look, I'd either play the wild card or just wait until Game Week 8, play the wild card then, and keep some of these players like Fernandez. I think he can do well against Everton, and of course he did do well against Villarreal midweek. It's a tough one, obviously. Trent and Jota, Trent is definitely out. Jota might not even play, but I'd consider maybe just holding out for now, and if not, just play the wild card instead of taking the hit. Trent out for this week is fine, right? Only risen 0.1 and will come back on my wildcard team. Yeah, I'm not really too obsessed with squad value, so I think that's a fair argument to be made. And looking at it logically, I would obviously rather keep Trent over Shaw. But if I'm wildcarding in Game Week 8 anyway, which is very likely at the moment, then I could just get rid of Trent, maybe lose 0.1 million, but who cares, to be honest. And if Luke Shaw plays, then I've got a bit more depth in my team for Game Week 7 specifically, so I completely agree with you. Have Trent and Ayling out, but little hope for Shaw, and there's someone on Twitter that said if they can get news on him for the deadline, if start, keep, if out, maybe -4. Yeah, fair enough. And that's why it's very beneficial to wait up until tomorrow morning or Saturday morning and then get all the information you can before finalising the moves. Thank you so much for your suggestions, Dylan. Thank you, Aranya. I am trying my best, obviously, and apologies to anyone that I haven't answered your questions. I'm trying to go as quickly as possible. Arnold and MacArthur for Rudiger and Saka for a -4. Once again, I'm not too sure about that. I'd probably just do Arnold to Rudiger and then get him back in. Ronaldo for Lukaku this week or the next one? I think the next one. Look, Lukaku can outscore him this week, and on paper he's slightly more likely to score. But I think they're both good options this week, so that's something I'd mainly be looking at for Game Week 8. Why are Edison and Mendy so rare in wildcards? Because people don't like spending so much money on the goalkeepers. I mean, just look at it this way. For a similar price for both of these players, you could get Cancelo in for Edison, and you could get in, let's say, for example, Rudiger or Azpilicueta for Mendy, who are more likely to get bonus points. Clean sheets, obviously the same level of chance, and also just attacking returns. And so just looking at it that way, I would rather have the defenders. I'm fed up with Sanchez as well, gets a yellow every match, yeah, and somehow he got a bonus ahead in Game Week 6, and obviously that big chance he created played a big part, but yeah, he is frustrating, and that's why I've been playing Foster over him recently. Keep Bamford and Trent. I'm hoping they come back after the international break. Long term, I would want to keep him, but this Bamford news is a bit worrying. You know, he could actually be out potentially in Game Week 8 too, to be honest. Sorry, I missed your thoughts on Kovacic. Once again, I talked about him before. Around his price, he is probably one of the better options in midfield, but I don't think he's going to sustain that level of performance. And I said this before Game Week 6, and I'll say the same again, to be honest. If Trent doesn't start, will Tsimikas be in contention? Well, Trent won't start, and to be honest, it will be Milner playing at right back like he did against Porto, and he was actually really good in that game. So no, I don't think so. It'd be Tsimikas or Robertson at left back, probably Robertson, and it will be Milner at right back, I think. Rudiger and Cancelo for Trent and Shaw for -4. It's a tough one. Obviously, I can understand that it would obviously benefit you this game week, but not too sure about the hit as well. If you're wildcarding in Game Week 8 as well, it just makes it a bit more difficult, your situation. But ultimately, should you do it or not? I think yes, especially if you don't have enough defensive depth. Thoughts on Jimenez and Sarr in the next 5 weeks? Jimenez obviously has the fixtures to do really well. Sarr has the form, but I just think Watford's fixtures are too difficult. But then again, you know, I'm looking at Sarr's price and below. I think he's the best option, you know, excluding fixtures out of the equation. But because of those fixtures and because Watford are so inconsistent, and I could see them potentially not scoring in some of these games, that puts me off Sarr, to be honest. But Jimenez could be a good one. Start either Duffy, White or Diaz. I'd start White. Ronaldo, Lukaku or Antonio FPL captain. Probably Lukaku, but they're all good choices. Antonio Lukaku or Antonio Jimenez. I'd rather have Antonio, but Jimenez is a good choice. Captain Antonio or Lukaku, I'd go for Lukaku, but Antonio's always good. Removing Greenwood for Benrahma and Shaw for Rudiger and taking a -4 hit. What do you think? Yeah, maybe this week is good. Obviously, the things that I would probably say against it, and the reason why I wouldn't do it for my own team, is because Greenwood can do well against Everton, and also taking a hit for those two transfers is fine. Rudiger long term is a really good pick, but Benrahma long term, taking a hit, I don't know if that's going to pay off, in my opinion. Aspi Alonso to transfer in. Alonso was my answer before, but because of the uncertainty surrounding him, I'd probably say Azpilicueta. -4 for Ayling to Cancelo, planning on wildcard in 9. I probably would, to be honest. That's a major upgrade, and you'd probably have Cancelo on your wildcard anyway. So I think even in these 2 game weeks coming up, I think it just pays off, to be honest. Will Rafinha's price change tonight? Not too sure, to be honest. There is a chance, especially with the news coming out yesterday from Bielsa of Rafinha being back and, well, at least not being injured. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really too bothered about that. I might, if I do bring in Rafinha, I might even just do it tomorrow morning, even if he goes up. Best keepers for Game Week 8 wildcard for me, still Ramsdale is a good choice. And Sanchez is still good, to be honest. It's just he's very frustrating at the moment. But I'd rather have Ramsdale because of the fixtures. Obviously, it's very risky. And also another one is still Jose Sarr, up until Game Week 14 anyway. And yeah, I don't like going for the kind of more expensive ones. Yeah, Yogesh says, Dylan, I mean, can't Edison or Mendy be part of a triple up as they are guaranteed starters? They can, obviously. And you don't have to avoid these goalkeepers just because others, like, for example, myself, aren't really too keen on spending a lot on their goalkeepers. But yeah, once again, I look at Chelsea, for example. My ideal Chelsea triple up would be Rudiger and either Christensen or Azpilicueta with Lukaku up front. And with City, that's where it becomes a bit more interesting because I probably wouldn't want to triple up on them because of the rotation. Then again, Diaz and Cancelo at the back, I actually would like that a lot. And possibly I say, maybe Grealish in the midfield, Gabriel Jesus up front if I want a really big punt, or Ferran Torres if you can get some consistent minutes. But yeah, ultimately, I'd just rather go for the double City defenders and then maybe get a cheaper goalkeeper to facilitate that. That's just my personal opinion. Like the stream a lot. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Gary. And obviously, like I said before, I apologize for being slow today, even slower than usual. But, you know, I'm trying to keep my voice intact. It is a bit of a struggle, but I am trying my best. I have Sanchez, Trent, Shaw, James, Simicas, Marty. What should I do? I have a wild card. Ooh, yeah. So I'm trying to think. So this week you'd play Sanchez, you'd play Shaw if he's fit. Oh, yeah, this is a bit difficult. I probably would wildcard Aiden. And if you want, check out my best wildcard team, which I posted on Monday. And the only change I'd made from that team, the one that I put in that video, and obviously you don't have to copy everything, but you can use that as a reference point. You could maybe, instead of Alonso, because of his starting berth being under question, you could go for Diaz, or maybe another Chelsea defender like Christensen or Azpilicueta. Rafinha, Salah, Fernandes, Benrahma, who should I add in your opinion? Rafinha, wait, who should I add? Oh, no, yeah, you've already got those four. Yeah. That's a difficult question, to be honest. I mean, another thing you can do, obviously, going forward is get rid of Fernandes, invest that money up front, and then get these kind of cheaper options in the midfield. I know some people are going for Mount and Havertz because of the fixtures, but honestly, I'm just not too sure about them. I'd possibly consider Grealish, terrific tech. Should I do Sarter, Smith-Rowe next week? Keep that in mind. It could be a good move, but once again with Smith-Rowe, I'm just not too sure about him as an asset, and he's going to be very inconsistent in my opinion. Should I wildcard this game week if my wildcard team is better than my current team, or should I wait until game week 8? If you're really struggling in game week 7 to field a starting 11 that you're happy with, then I just wildcard this week. The benefit of holding it for another week is obviously getting more information from that extra week or two that you have up until the game week 8 deadline, and also you can see who's going to be quarantining, who's injured, and all of this stuff, you know, who's got COVID or who's got an illness. Start Williams, Allen, or Livramento. I'd start Williams, to be honest, but the other two aren't too bad, at least Allen isn't. Thoughts on Mount? I'd rather have double Chelsea defence. He's a decent option and he's got the fixtures, but I'd rather go for the Chelsea defenders. Thoughts on Saka? Some decent fixtures coming up, but I don't know. I'd rather go for Rafinha around the same price. If you have Rafinha already and you want Saka in for Sarr, that makes sense. And on a wildcard, I may go for Saka, but he's just not someone I'm too confident in terms of consistent goal output. No problem, Maiden. It's so frustrating that we can't add a City attacker because of the hefty bench and rotations. Exactly, Eternal. That's always been the issue for me with them, and that's why I kind of just avoid them for now. Need a 1 week defender punt. Any shouts, Dylan, other than Chelsea? I actually talked about this before. I think Nelson Semedo is a really good one against Newcastle if you don't have him already. Creswell against Brentford could be decent, but I think the main one would be Semedo against Newcastle. And another one is maybe a Burnley defender against Norwich, so I'm looking at Lowton. It's very risky though because Burnley have some of the worst defensive stats in the league. And another one potentially, maybe Tierney against Brighton, but I think that's a bit of a difficult fixture for Arsenal and Brighton alike. So yeah, I think Semedo against Newcastle would be my top pick. If not, maybe Matthew Lowton if you're feeling brave. Vardy, decent return so far, seems to be going under the radar. Yeah, and maybe I should be giving more attention in my wildcard teams. And of course, he's really good. And yeah, from Leicester, whoa, voice crack. He's the only defender I'd be going for. He's the only player or attacker I'd be going for. Barnes at the moment isn't really looking on it. Leicester overall are looking really poor. And that's the kind of only downside to Vardy. Because he's a premium player, Leicester are a bit inconsistent. You could maybe find more reliable teams and players elsewhere, but Vardy's still been doing well and ticking along nicely, like you said. So it's a difficult one. I think he's a good choice. Hi Dylan, hope you're feeling better. Sarter, Saka, Game Week 8, and Greenwood and Mbeumo. Game Week 9 have Rafinha, Salah already. Is Rudiger, Diaz, Marcel, F. Ant? Lukaku, striker, Max G. Sanchez. Thank you, Todd West. Yeah, I am feeling a bit better, but still a bit, I'd say, not fully up to it. But hopefully that changes soon. Yeah, Sarter, Saka in Game Week 8 looks good, and Mbeumo, very good that you mentioned him. I think he's a great choice, to be honest. I think that looks really solid. Will Rudiger definitely start? Will he be rested this week? I don't think he will be rested, and we've got an international break. So yeah, I just don't see the need to rest him. And Chelsea already have a few injuries, so it doesn't make sense in my opinion. Smith Rowe and Mbeumo, I actually prefer Mbeumo, to be honest. That's just a personal opinion, but Smith Rowe isn't bad, and don't be put off him just because I'm not really, too confident in him being that consistent at his price. And Mbeumo's not going to be consistent either, but I just have a bit more confidence in him returning. Thanks, keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Wrath of Ares. Oh, nice name. Start Williams, Allen or Livramento. Yeah, Elliot, I said Williams from those three. I was running Rafinha captain at the start of the week, and even though he'll play now, I think I'm going Antonio, as Rafinha may still get pulled at 70. And Mikel has decent fixtures and great form. Yeah, I'd rather go for Antonio captain, to be honest, but I do like Rafinha too. Trent and Bamford in my team. Wildcard used. I have to remove one for playing 11, or have to use Livramento for this game week. Who to remove them with? And this is for a -4. Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd rather probably get rid of Bamford, but I'm not sure which strikers you already have, child pranksters. But I'd rather keep Trent long term for sure. I want to have Rafinha in my team, but I'm afraid he'll be quarantined and won't play during the next game week. Yeah, that's why if you're wildcarding in game week 8, you could get Rafinha in now, and then avoid him in game week 8, and then bring someone else in, and you could always get Rafinha in later. But obviously that is a bit of a concern with Rafinha because of game week 8. A -4 for Aspi and bench Livramento. Possibly, to be honest. I don't see Southampton keeping a clean sheet against Chelsea, but then again, no one expected it against City, and they did it at the Etihad, so it is possible, to be honest. What do you think will be the differentials? The differentials. Definitely Burnley plays. I think Chris Wood against Norwich could be fantastic. I think he's around 2% owned, if I'm not mistaken. Lowton, of course, like I discussed before. But once again, with Burnley, I'd be a bit hesitant with their defenders because of their record. But I think Chris Wood could be a fantastic one. He is the ultimate differential this week, I think, on paper. So I'd probably go for him. What's your opinion on Gray for this game week? I think he could maybe notch a goal. United aren't really the best defensively. But he's still not ideal, and a lot of people will be benching him, and I can understand why. Is Lukaku to Ronaldo worth it based on this week's fixture? It can be worth it, but honestly, I have no problem with keeping Ronaldo for another week. I think the ideal week for making that move is game week 8, but there's nothing wrong with keeping Ronaldo or selling him in game week 7. Of course, it can backfire either way, but I think you don't have to get Lukaku in this week. Do you think Christensen starts? I believe he will, to be honest. No problem, Elliot. Play Saka, Sarr, or Saint-Maximin? I'd definitely play Saint-Maximin, to be honest, out of those. Actually, no, yeah. Don't bench Sarr. Yeah, play Sarr. They're all good options this week, though. Christensen for Manquillo this week, so I can get Cancelo and Lukaku game week 8. Or should I prioritise transferring out Jota? Please respond. Yeah, I'd probably... do Christensen for Manquillo and then get Cancelo Lukaku. Jota's not going to be playing or starting every single game week from now on, you would suspect. So that could be an issue, but I think that defensive, set of plans you have is really good. Hi, good evening. I have 5 playing defenders. Is it worth to get a -4 hit to get a Chelsea player? You have 5 playing defenders. I mean, if you have 5 defenders anyway, you don't have to take a hit to get another of their defenders, to be honest. And the only hit that could be worth it is getting Lukaku up front. But I wouldn't be getting rid of Ronaldo for Lukaku for a hit. So you could just wait another week, to be honest. Force on Vardy, really good option. I've been talking about him before, and he's been ticking along nicely. The second highest scoring forward, I believe. And of course, he's always a good option. I just don't like Leicester too much. But then again, Vardy's still doing well. And on a wild card, I'd still probably go for Lukaku, Antonio, and maybe another striker instead, and invest the money at the back. So that's why I wouldn't be going for Vardy myself, but by all means, go for him. I've seen some really good teams with Vardy, Lukaku, and Antonio up front, and of course, you can do the same thing. I know that Brentford so far is a pretty decent defence, but just now they've played an elite attack and they conceded 3. Obviously, West Ham not elite or Liverpool level, but I still rate their attack quite high. Yeah, exactly. And that's why, if it's an open game, I think Antonio could be a great choice. I am considering him for the captaincy, to be honest. And Ronaldo will still probably be the most highly captain player this week. Hi, I hope you remember me. You helped me a lot in the first 5 game weeks. Thank you a lot, Foram. I do remember you. And thank you very much for joining in once again. I already have Antonio and Lukaku and Bamford and Trent is my problem. Who to replace and with who? I think Bamford to Jimenez could be a good move. If not, I think maybe Saint-Maximin could be decent. But then again, he is facing Wolves. It's not the easiest fixture. But yeah, I think Jimenez could be a good one. I've already used my wildcard in Game Week 4, so I'm unsure who should I place, Jota with Rafinha or someone else. Yeah, Rafinha. I'd go for Rafinha. Luke Shaw, he's a doubt for Game Week 7, but then again, he's been in training. He's got an illness, or he had an illness and an injury, but he's in training. He has a chance of starting, but then again, you never know with Shaw. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been a bit, difficult with his press conferences recently. He hasn't given too much away. Thank you very much to everyone who has joined in. Really appreciate it. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Massive shout out to the new channel members today. Obviously, really appreciate it. And you don't have to, but much appreciated nonetheless. Wanja and Yarang, I think it is. Thank you very much for becoming a channel member. We've got 4 now. And remember, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Dylan_RCM. And there will be a reaction stream potentially if I'm able to. And thankfully, I've been able to stream for an hour so far. Still struggling a little bit, but I am recovering. And I should be pretty much fine very soon. So everything is good. Hopefully FPL goes pretty well. In terms of my transfer plans, once again, I'll probably be getting Rudiger in for either Trent Alexander-Arnold or Luke Shaw. I think looking at it logically, it would make more sense to get rid of Trent. I'm always going to be bringing him back in potentially, either on my wildcard in Game Week 8 or later on. And if not, I can do Jota to Rafinha. And if I wildcard in Game Week 8, I can go without Rafinha, especially if he misses out because of the quarantine rules. So that's my kind of plans at the moment. Let me know what you think. And I did put a poll out earlier, and most of you think that Shaw to Rudiger is the best move to make. And in terms of the captaincy, at the moment I'm going for Ronaldo. I've got Salah vice captain, but to be honest, against Manchester City, I think Salah can do well, and he has done so in the past, but I'd rather captain Antonio or Ronaldo because of the fixture. And looking at my team, without transfers, I wouldn't mind Ben White coming in for Trent. And if Shaw plays, this doesn't look too bad. But I think one free transfer could be really good and actually, be the right call to make. For example, Rafinha in for Jota is a big upgrade for Game Week 7 specifically, and even beyond. But I think that could actually be the way to go. Let's wait and see what happens. Obviously, if we have a bit more information about Luke Shaw, then, if he's starting, then I'd just be happy to keep my defenders as they are and make that midfielder switch. Do I get rid of Jota? I think if you're wildcarding in Game Week 8 and you've got a good defence, you've got a starting lineup that's good, you can do Jota to Rafinha, for example. That's what I'd probably do. Aspie and Williams or Alonso and Livramento. As a duo, I would rather have Alonso and Livramento, but just bear in mind that Aspie is more nailed than Alonso. Is Traore starting? That's a tough question to answer. I mean, I think he might. If you're asking me, is he going to start or not? Based on the fact that Wolves won without Traore starting, I think he won't start. But then again, he could. And will he still, will he do well if he starts? I'm not too sure, to be honest. Thank you, Shafiq. Let's see. Thoughts on Saint-Maximin? I think he's a decent choice this week, but he is facing Wolves, and Wolves are so difficult to predict. Who knows what we are going to get from them? With Newcastle, they're going to rely on Saint-Maximin a lot. If they do something, it will come through him, you'd expect. But yeah, he's still one of my favourite options around his price at the moment for the next few fixtures, but beyond that, not too sure. I'm taking a -16. Honestly, Keith, if you have a wild card, I just play it. I wouldn't take a -16. Captain Lukaku, Antonio Ronaldo, I'd go for Lukaku, but the other two are good. Get rid of Shaw, Chua or Jota. Who's the replacement then? Would love to take a -4, but it's okay not to -4. Before this week, I would have definitely said Chilwell, but he has a chance of starting this week. But then again, if Chilwell doesn't start, Shaw's injured, and you get rid of Jota instead, which might be a good move this week, but I don't know. All of them could go wrong for you, potentially, if I'm being completely honest. Long term, I'd definitely say get rid of Chilwell. I'd rather have another Chelsea defender anyway, and you just never know when he's going to start. But yeah, let's say, for example, you get rid of Chilwell, which could backfire in Game Week 7 specifically, but long term is the right call in my opinion. I'd probably just go for another Chelsea defender like Rudiger, but taking a -4 to get rid of Chilwell, who could start, for Rudiger, I just think it can massively backfire this week, to be honest. Thank you very much to Domba. Really appreciate the super chat. You didn't have to. For Game Week 8, Cancelo and Saka or White and Grealish? That's a fantastic question, to be honest. I think that's a really tough one. I'd actually go for Cancelo and Saka. Saka actually did a really good assist last season against Brighton. I think he assisted Lacazette's goal. And I think there's more of a chance, I could be completely wrong about this, but I think there's more of a chance of Cancelo doing well against Liverpool in terms of points than Grealish in my opinion, but obviously I could be wrong about that. Wait, I'm a mod? I didn't realise that. Yeah, Laser, I made you and quite a few others that I trust that have been long-time viewers of the channel, or just those who have been, really avid viewers recently. But yeah, I haven't, just thrown it around to anyone. I've given it to, some people. Take a hit for Sarr. Depends who you get rid of, Terrific Tech. Shall I sell Trent and buy Cancelo? If it's for a free transfer, then I think it can do, it can be alright. But then again, if Cancelo gets 1 or 2 points this week, don't be completely surprised. But it would be a good move long term. Price rises, it's not something I'm really thinking about, to be honest. What's up with Rudiger? Well, Rudiger, not much, to be honest, from what I've heard. He should be fine for Game Week 7. I'm possibly getting him in for either Trent or Shaw, to be honest. So he is my ideal Chelsea defender of choice. Let's see what else I've missed. Best goalkeeper for Wildcard. Ramsdale's decent but afraid of rotation with Leno. Do you think Raya good for long term but Game Week 7 and 8 are bad? Yeah, Raya's been doing really well so far this season, but if we look at Brentford's fixtures, they're not exactly the greatest in my opinion for quite a long time. So let me get his fixtures up on screen for you. So let's look at Raya. So I don't think Leicester is exactly the worst fixture in the world, even West Ham, but I would expect potentially, Brentford to concede in those games. Then after, Game Week 10, fair enough, the fixtures do turn, but some of these, grey fixtures or, free on the FDR, like Everton, Tottenham and Leeds, all of those teams could score against Brentford, to be honest. And yeah, look, obviously he looks really good from Game Week 10 to 12. Would I rather have Raya or Sanchez? At this moment in time, possibly Raya, to be honest. And Sanchez is 4.6 million. I mean, so is Raya. I'd say Raya is one of the best ones to go for. If not, Jose Sarr, you can go for him up until Game Week 14. I'd probably rather go for him over Raya, but yeah, he's a good choice as well. And that's a good point you raise. If you're not confident of Ramsdale maintaining that starting berth, you could always go for him instead. Thoughts on Azpilicueta? Yeah, look, for Chelsea, Rudiger's my number one choice, and then it'd be Christensen or Azpilicueta. I think they're both good choices. I have 2 free transfers. I also plan to wildcard in Game Week 8. I have Shaw, Trent, Soufal flagged as doubts. Which 2 would you transfer out and who would you get in? Will you take a -4 to get rid of Jota? Yeah, you got Shaw, Trent and Soufal flagged. I think Shaw could actually play in Game Week 7. Obviously, we don't know that for sure. Trent is definitely out, so it makes sense to get rid of him. You can get a Chelsea defender in. So Rudiger is my ideal one, if not Azpilicueta or Christensen. You don't have to get rid of Jota, of course, but if you don't have Rafinha, what you could do, actually, is just get rid of Jota for Rafinha and get rid of Trent for, let's say, Rudiger. That's what you could do. I would probably try to avoid the hit if possible, especially if you have 2 free transfers. I don't think you have to. But if you're in a position where you're going to struggle a lot to field 11 players unless you take a hit, then I'd consider it, but otherwise you don't have to. Unfortunately, I used my wildcard in Game Week 4 and I've been having red arrows since. You can get some green arrows in the future and when the weeks to come, but yeah, I think with a wild card, the main thing is the benefits medium to long term. That's why it's the most powerful and useful chip. But yeah, I wouldn't be kind of too worried about that. Keep Jota and sell Trent for Rudiger, or Rudiger and Saka with Trent and on the bench for next week, but -4. Ooh. I'd probably look if you're wildcarding soon. I'm not sure if you are, Jamie. If you have a wildcard in your back pocket, I'd keep. Yeah, that's a tough one. Actually, that's a really tough one. I'm kind of caught off guard there. For Rudiger, I think look, Jota is going to be a bit of a concern nowadays because of Firmino coming back. So I think the first option is the best, in my opinion. But obviously, try to get Trent back, especially if you have a wild card. I can't afford Rudiger, but can afford Christensen. Just worried about him starting. But the good thing about Christensen is he's cheap, and if he doesn't start, he won't be coming on for 1-pointers. Obviously, if you don't have enough defensive depth, then Christensen isn't ideal. He's someone you want to have when you have another, let's say, 3 or 4 good options in defence. What do you think about double City and Chelsea for long term? Definitely, something I'd be looking at, and even triple Chelsea. In terms of the defence, I think double's fine. I wouldn't go overboard with 3. And same with City. I think Diaz and Cancelo and Azpilicueta and Rudiger, or if not Christensen, is really good. And you can have Lukaku up front. Start Veltman or Duffy, Sanchez or Foster. At the moment, I'm gone for Sanchez because I expect Foster to concede anyway against Leeds. But it's a tough one, to be honest, looking at both cases. As for Veltman or Duffy, I'd probably go for Duffy, to be honest, and maybe Sanchez. But then again, you know, because you've already got a Brighton defender and I don't expect a clean sheet against Arsenal, you could just go for Foster, actually. Yeah, Foster and Duffy, I'd say. Best 4.5 and 4 million goalkeeper. 4 million is definitely Foster. There's not really much to think about there. And 4.5 Ramsdale at the moment. What do you do when you have Ayling, Bamford, Trent and Shaw? Well, Shaw could make it, to be honest. The rest won't. So that will obviously be something to bear in mind. And let me try to get the comment up again. Yeah, I mean, if you have a wild card, I'd probably be using it. But if you have 2 free transfers, you can get away with it and then wild card in Game Week 8. And then I get some Chelsea defenders in. Thank you very much, Domba, once again for the super chat. You don't have to, mate, but obviously really appreciate it. Great content. I watch you more than Netflix of late. I really like binge watching. Happy to support. Thank you very much. Obviously, like I said, you don't have to, but it's massively appreciated. And as for Netflix, yeah, I mean, there is Squid Game, actually, if you haven't seen that already. I haven't seen it myself, so no spoilers, please. Now that I've said that, watch there be some spoilers. But either way, I wouldn't know what you're talking about because I haven't seen it. But thank you very much, Dumbo. Obviously, massively appreciate and hope to see you in more streams and stuff. And obviously, you don't have to donate there, but thank you very much. I'm buying Chilwell. I know it's a risk, but I'm wildcarding Game Week 8 anyways. Fair enough. I mean, this is the good thing when you have that wildcard in the back pocket. You're allowed to make these kind of risky transfers that you normally wouldn't do, and it could actually pay off, you know. A lot of people have Alonso. He doesn't play. Chilwell does, and he does really well. Of course, it can backfire, but let's wait and see. Jota out for -4. I have Salah, Benrahma, Sarr, Rafinha, Jota. If you already have a playing 11 and you've got defenders to cover like a Wolves one or White, I don't think you have to be honest. Will Alonso play? Honestly, I'm just, you know, before the Champions League, before what happened, I would have said yes, I think he's going to start, but now I'm not too sure. Anything could happen. Do you think West Ham players will be a good pick? Definitely Antonio. Beyond that, looking long term, I don't think Benrahma is as good of an option as he was for the opening 7 game weeks. And looking at the defenders, I think there's just better value elsewhere. So Antonio for sure, then maybe Benrahma. I'm not really interested in the rest at the moment. Should I get rid of Shaw or Jota? I have 2 million in the bank. I don't have Rafinha, or I could get any defender. If you have enough defenders and you've got a good starting 11, I'd rather do Jota to Rafinha, to be honest. Yeah, that's what I'd probably think about doing. Dylan, sell Trent or not if wildcard has been used? If you've used your wildcard, I'd probably keep him because he's most likely going to be back in Game Week 8 and I just think he's a good long-term option. Of course, you don't have to have him and you could move him on to a City defender or Chelsea one. Will Alonso play? Once again, I don't think he will. 120 watching, only 56 likes. Smash that like button. Thank you very much, Laser. I have a problem at the back. I have Alonso, Trent, Ayling, Reguilon and Williams, but no wildcard and no free transfers. Oh, yeah. Alonso, Trent, Ayling, Reguilon. I mean, Williams, Reguilon and Alonso can be good this week. Obviously, let's wait and see if Alonso starts. But yeah, Ayling is out and same with Trent. You going 3-5-2 this week? Yes, unless if Shaw is fit, then what I could do is have White come in for Trent Alexander-Arnold. And then, yeah, actually just move on Trent for Rudiger, play all 4 of them and then play 4 in midfield and bench Jota. That's what I could do. But if I do Jota to Rafinha, then definitely 3-5-2 is the way forward. I really hope Rudiger and Ramsdale don't rise like expected to tonight. FPL statistics and Rafinha for your sake, although I have him, maybe not the best idea, but think I'll play wildcard straight after the deadline. Fair enough. Well, to be honest, there's nothing wrong with playing the wildcard straight after the deadline if your plan was to wildcard in Game Week 8 anyway, and you can obviously have the advantage of manipulating the price rises and stuff. Grealish and White or Diaz and Saka? I think I was asked this before. Yeah, I think for long term, I'd rather have Grealish and White, if I'm being honest, but Diaz is such a good option, I think. Thoughts on taking a 1 week punt on Chris Wood? Definitely, I'd definitely recommend it. And yeah, if I had, you know, enough money to do Richardson to Wood, I'd definitely do it, to be honest. 9 million midfielder for long term. I think Grealish is a good one. He's obviously 8 million, but yeah, I'm not really too infused by the options around 8 to 10 million. Wood 1 game week punt, definitely. I've talked about him before. I think he's a really good choice. Thanks, Dylan, for your help. Really appreciate your help. Great stream again. Good luck for game week 7 and get well soon. Thank you very much. Appreciate the good wishes and good luck to you as well. Pookie after a few game weeks. Not for me. I just don't trust Norwich enough. Pookie will do well occasionally, but I'd rather have Chris Wood, for example, or just the other options like, say, Maximan, Malpai, even Armstrong. Jimenez, Tony. Torres to Sarr for a hit. I think it could pay off this week yet, but long term, I'm not too sure about Sarr, but I probably would go for it. Just bear in mind that Torres could start some of these easier games coming up for City, and he can do really well. Smith Rowe or Saka? That's a good question. That's a really good question. If I'm being honest, I'm not really too keen on either of them, but I'd probably edge towards Saka. But is he really worth that extra million? Who knows, but I'd probably say Saka. Jota replacement? I think Rafinha for sure if you don't have him. Hey Dylan, you helped me get 102 points for Game Week 2 in Champions League. Can't wait for your wildcard team. Thank you very much, Ashraf. Really appreciate it, and glad to have helped. Who to pick for a free midfielder? And I have Salah and Rafinha, and not Sarr and Benrahma and any City players because I don't think these are good picks. Any suggestions? Ooh, for a third midfielder. That's an interesting one. Maybe Saka, but I'm honestly not too convinced by him and the others, but I think he could be a really good option long term. Yeah, looking at the rest, I'm not really buying into most of them. There's a lot of off-form players at the moment, so things can change, and some players who've done really well so far, they've got some tough fixtures coming up, so I'd probably be looking at Saka or maybe one of the Everton players still. Yeah. And you've already got Rafinha. He's definitely, he's a no-brainer. He's someone you don't really have to think about too much. But yeah, those are the kind of players I'd be looking at. Should I get rid of Shaw, Jota? Yeah, I'd probably get rid of Jota, Genius Gamer, like I said before. Karim says, thoughts on Kovacic. Once again, the same as last week and what I said earlier. At his price in midfield, he's probably one of the better ones, but I don't expect him to sustain his goal output for a long period of time, and I'd rather have two Chelsea defenders and Lukaku up front. Thanks for the help. Thank you very much, Keith. Thank you very much. Chris Wood or say Maximan for this week specifically? Definitely Chris Wood. What's your transfer plans this week? To move either Trent or Luke Shaw to Rudiger, and if not, it'll be Jota to Rafinha. It's something I'm yet to decide. Most of you think I should do Shaw to Rudiger, but I think there's a chance of Shaw playing in Game Week 7, and if I don't play the wildcard this week, I most likely will be in Game Week 8, and I'll be getting Trent back in probably anyway, so I don't mind getting rid of Trent for this week, keeping Shaw, who could do well in Game Week 7, and getting Rudiger in. What's your thoughts on Vardy up front along with Lukaku and Antonio? I think that's probably the best front three you can go for the next few game weeks, but is it maybe, could you use that Vardy money to go big at the back, for example? Possibly. So if it prevents you from going big at the back, and maybe reconsider, but as a front three, there's no arguing against that. Start Duffy, Gray or Cancelo with pick 2. I have Sanchez and Foster. I'd start Cancelo. Even though it's Liverpool, I'd probably start him. And you had to pick another one. The way I'd go for it is probably Sanchez in goal, Gray and Cancelo. Trent, Jota, Scarlett out, Rudiger, Gallagher, Antonio in for a -4. What do you think? I think those transfers make sense. You don't have Antonio, I'd definitely be getting him in. Rudiger as well, and Gallagher could do pretty decent. So you know what? I'd actually go for that -4, Stuart. That looks pretty good. Why did you think Arsenal can play well against Brighton? I mean, why can't they, to be honest? I mean, Brighton have a few injuries. Basuma could be out. I think Welbeck is... he's going to have an operation or something like that. And Arsenal are in good form. Look, I'm not saying Arsenal are definitely going to win the game, and they've been playing some poor teams lately, so it's difficult to judge whether they can continue this against better opposition. But yeah, I think they can beat Brighton, and it's going to be a tough game. I could see a 2-1 or a narrow 1-0 victory to either side. But I think Arsenal are more likely to win than Brighton on paper. They've got a better team, and if they continue the way they did against Spurs, Arsenal have to win that game. So look, Brighton could still do well, and I am going for Sanchez and goal at the moment. But that's mainly because I expect Watford to concede also. But maybe the way I should look at it is I expect both Sanchez and Foster to concede, and Foster tends to get more save points and let fewer yellow cards. So maybe I should go for him instead. But yeah, it's a difficult situation there. Who's your captain choice for the week? I'm going for Ronaldo at the moment, but Antonio, I'm seriously considering him. And if Salah wasn't playing Manchester City, he would definitely be my captain. What do you think of Doucouré? I'd rather go for Townsend or Gray. Obviously, Doucouré's been really good so far this season, but I don't expect him to continue it for a long period of time. But of course, he will be. I still think he can do all right for the next few. When are you going to wildcard? Probably Game Week 8, but if not, it could be a really late wildcard in Game Week 7, but most likely it'll be Game Week 8. You do the best live stream. Thank you very much. Utkrush, really appreciate it. Utkash, I think it is. Apologies if I butchered your name. Suggest medium or mid player to kick out Jota, Benrahma. Already have Saka and Rafinha. Gallagher probably, especially looking long term. I'd probably say Gallagher. Should I start Sarr and Gray or bench one of them? It depends on the rest of your team, to be honest. I'd definitely start Sarr. He's not in the equation for that. I wouldn't be benching him. Would you bench or start Gray? It depends who's going to be, making way for him. I would definitely start Ben White over Gray, for example. My wildcard is Ramsdale, Foster, Cancelo, Rudiger, Livramento, Aspie, White, Salah, Rafinha, Gallagher, Grealish, Douglas Luiz, Antonio, Lukaku, Jimenez with 0.8. Any improvements? An interesting one. Yeah, Douglas Luiz is looking like one of the best 4.5 million options recently because of his advanced position. I like the attack. I like the team overall, to be honest. No Trent, obviously, and it makes sense heading into this game week. You've got 0.8 million. Yeah, you got the double Chelsea defence. To be honest, that's a really good team. I wouldn't say there's a clear weakness there. I'd go for something very similar on my wildcard, so I like it. Should I keep James and play Livramento or get Aspie for a hit? Oof. I'd probably take the hit if possible, but you don't have to be honest. You could just, suck it up and get Livramento in. Why do you prefer Rafinha over Saka? I just think he's a more reliable and consistent FPL option. I think he'll get more assists and possibly more goals. And with Arsenal, the goals are more spread. With Leeds, it tends to come from Bamford or Rafinha. Captain on Antonio, Rafinha, Sarr, Son or Wood. They're all good options, to be honest. I'd probably go for Antonio out of those lot, but I'd be tempted by Chris Wood or Son, to be honest. I think Wood, differential captain, could be exceptional. Hey, Dylan Jones just now, what are your plans for next game week? Once again, probably going to be captain Ronaldo, if not Antonio. In terms of my transfer, I don't want to take a hit, so I'd probably just make one, and I'd do either Shaw or Trent to Rudiger, and if not, Jota to Rafinha, and I'm going to be wildcarding in game week 8 anyway, so it makes more sense actually to get rid of Trent, who's definitely not going to play in game week 7, and maybe keep Shaw, who has a chance of playing. So that's what I'm thinking of. Saka or Sarr? For game week 7, Sarr, long-term Saka. Rafinha for captain, it's a good differential shout, but I probably would go for someone else. I have Rudiger. Who do you suggest for the double Chelsea defence? Christensen, Aspie or Alonso? I would have said Alonso before, based on his minutes so far this season and also just his attacking output, but because of the kind of doubts we have at the moment, I'd probably be going for either Christensen or Azpilicueta. And personally, I'd go for Christensen because of the other injuries in Chelsea's team. For me, I'm not making any huge changes to my team, so there will be an international break after Game Week 7, and the players on red injured will be back, hopefully. What do you think? Yeah, that makes complete sense, to be honest. And for example, if you bring in Rafinha now, you don't have a wild card in Game Week 8, he's going to be missing out in Game Week 8, potentially, and then, it just doesn't really make too much sense, so I completely understand that. Now, the Doucouré is box-to-box. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying it's a bad option. I just prefer Gray and Townsend based on what I've seen so far. But, of course, Doucouré has shown a lot more attacking promise this season. Similar to Idrissa Gana Gueye from PSG, who scored 4 as well. But, yeah, Doucouré has been looking good, but he's just not someone I'm a big fan of. He's not someone I'd be going for in my team. Of course, if he keeps this up, then I would consider him, but I'm just not that confident in him. Alonso for captain, not for me because he's a big doubt this week for starting. Gallagher or Saka Smith-Rowe? I'd probably go for Gallagher. Sorry, I was out for 10 minutes. No problem, Laser. Obviously, just feel free to tune in when you can or when you want. To be honest, it doesn't matter. Son as captain instead of Ronaldo. Something to consider. Even Harry Kane, for example, could be really good this week. But I think Aston Villa are pretty resilient, and they showed how difficult they can be against Chelsea and Manchester United. So I would still go for Ronaldo instead, but there's nothing wrong with going for Son. I can play Christensen, Cancelo, Rudiger at the back, and can afford a front line of Vardy, Antonio Jimenez, along with Grealish. But we'll have to play Gallagher every week. Thoughts? Not necessarily a bad thing. Gallagher, once again, he's someone who could be really good, and he has done really well so far. But once again, I need to see a bit more from him on a consistent basis to really trust him. But of course, he's a really cheap player. But I don't think it's the worst thing to be playing him every week. Obviously, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'd rather spend that money in the defence and have double City or Chelsea defence and, play them every week. But I don't think that's the worst thing. CR7, Lukaku or Antonio as captain, I have all three. I'd go for Lukaku, but there's nothing wrong with the other two. Why not get in Walker instead of Cancelo? Diaz? He is cheaper and a nailed starter. Honestly, I think with Walker, yeah, he is a good player and he's a good option. And he's obviously less owned than the other two. But I think Cancelo gets more points when he starts. And at the moment, Cancelo's completely nailed. Diaz is the most nailed City defender you can get. And in terms of bonus points, I think Cancelo is the best of the three, and Diaz is probably the second best. So I'd just rather go for them. Do you think Luke Shaw will play? I have a sneaky feeling he will, but there is a chance he doesn't, based on all these comments and obviously the illness and the injury Shaw sustained. But I think he will. What do you think about Jimenez? I think he's a good choice, and on a wildcard, I am considering him, and he's got good fixtures up until game week 14. But once again, he did score against Southampton. Is he going to be a consistent goal scorer every single week like he was before? I'm not too sure, but obviously he is a good choice. Which one would you start out of Sissoko, Gray, Jota, and Livramento? Oh, that's a tough one. A very tough one. I'd probably go for Gray out of those four, but they're all good options, and even Jota could be decent. 2 free transfers: Semedo and Arnold out for Azpilicueta and Rudiger next week, dropping Ronaldo for Antonio and Grealish for KDB. No points loss. Any opinions? I wouldn't be getting rid of Semedo this week against Newcastle, to be honest. Trent, I can understand. You can always get him back in, but I wouldn't be getting rid of Semedo. Dropping Ronaldo for Antonio and Grealish for KDB. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I would rather drop Ronaldo for Lukaku. Maybe you have him already, to be fair. Antonio, look, he's a good option. I like him a lot. I think he's great value for money. But getting rid of Ronaldo for Antonio when Antonio has tough fixtures coming up as well, I don't know if it's the greatest time to get him in, but obviously it's still a good move, in my opinion, potentially. And Grealish for KDB, yeah, I'd rather have Grealish because of the price. Your opinion on Son? Not bad fixtures. Maybe I can get him in now. I'm on a wild card. Yeah, look, Son is a good option. I'm never going to dispute that. And I think Son and Kane will improve. And same with Spurs as an offensive unit in the Premier League. But I just think for a similar price, you can get Jamie Vardy up front. I'd rather have him based on the form, based on the stats that we've seen so far this season. And Spurs just don't fill me with confidence. There can be games where they don't score or even have a shot on target, which would very much worry me as a Son or Kane owner. And of course, in midfield, I'd rather have Salah and maybe just invest more of the money in my defence, have double City or Chelsea defence, possibly even both of them, and have Lukaku up front. So because of that and the distribution of funds, I'd probably avoid. But of course, he is a good choice. Gallagher or Doucouré, I'd rather go for Gallagher, but Doucouré isn't bad. Ramsdale, Leno should be outright, and we won the derby. Go Arsenal. Yeah, I think Ramsdale should be fairly nailed at the moment, but that could change based on the performance or two. But yeah, and Arsenal, very impressive, obviously. Hopefully they can keep it up. Should I free hit? I have Sanchez, Trent, Rudiger, Alonso, Cancelo, Jota, Salah, Benrahma, Gray, Sarr, Ronaldo in my starting 11. I would save the free hit for a double or blank game week, to be honest. Alonso and Saint-Maximin or Christensen and Wood. For game week 7 specifically, I'd go for Christensen and Wood, Kobe. Is Cancelo really a good option against Liverpool? Not necessarily against Liverpool. I don't think he's a good option. He can do well against them, but on paper, you'd expect both teams to score. With Cancelo, you're mainly looking long term. I'm 39th in UCL in GB because of you. Thanks. Thank you, Aiden. Hopefully you continue to do well. Will Trincao start in game week 7? I'm not too sure about that one, to be honest. I'm a bit less sure. Rafinha over Jota? Yeah, I think Rafinha is a better option long term. Start White or Cancelo? I'd start White. Would you consider getting an Aston Villa defender? I would consider it, mainly Matty Cash. But because of what I've been thinking about and my transfer plans and the defences I want to target, I don't think there would be a spot for him. When will you be confirming your transfer for this game week, Dylan? I'm not too sure, to be honest. As soon as I'm, fully decided, I'll make the transfer and then I'll, confirm it. That's pretty much how I always do it. What's your favourite pick in the sub 6 million midfielders? Probably Gallagher at this moment in time, but that could easily change. I think Gray's another one, and Townsend, and you know what, Doucouré could also be another good one, but I'd probably say Gallagher or Gray at the moment. Hello, how do you feel? Your voice sounds better. Hope you're doing well. What would you do if you had both questionable Trent and Shaw, Soucek and 1.7 million in the bank with budget? What position would you upgrade? Yeah, I'm feeling better. Versta, thank you very much. And yeah, if you had Trent and Shaw and Soucek and 1.7 million budget, if you don't have Rafinha, I think Soucek to Rafinha is an easy switch. And then probably, let's assume you have a wildcard in game week 8. I'd wildcard in game week 8. I'd get rid of Trent, go for, let's say, Rudiger or Christensen or Azpilicueta, and then do Soucek to Rafinha. That's what I'd probably do if you had 2 free transfers as well. Kane would have been so big this season if he transferred to City. Yeah, I agree, to be honest. Maybe not as big as we thought, but I think he would do really well. Tony or Jimenez long term, same bench. Up until game week 14, looking at from a purely fixtures point of view, I think Jimenez, but looking even further long term, I think Tony. I'd rather have Tony. Christensen or Azpilicueta, I'd rather go for Christensen, to be honest, but they're both good choices. Duffy, Shaw, Veltman, Saar, Benrahma, Salah, Jota, Greenwood, Antonio, Ronaldo is my 11. Rudiger for Veltman and Rafinha for Jota. Good move. Taking a -4, by the way. That looks pretty decent, to be honest. I like those moves. Yeah, I think that's fine, to be honest. Obviously, I don't like taking hits, but I think that's pretty decent. Yeah, I'd probably go for it. Wildcard is Ramsdale, Foster, Cancelo, Rudiger, Diaz, Pinnock, Tsimikas, Kovacic. Yeah, honestly, Hassan, there's some players there that I don't like. Obviously, you don't have to listen to me. It's just my opinion. Pinnock, yeah, Brentford have been decent defensively, but I'd rather go for, let's say, for example, Livramento or Duffy as your budget defender. And same with Tsimikas. On a wild card, it just doesn't make sense because he's not going to be playing most of the time. Kovacic, I don't expect him to really continue his form. In Mbeumo, I like. Saint-Maximin's good for the next few fixtures, but yeah, those players I mentioned before, I'd probably change. Force on who to put captain out of Lukaku, Fernandes, Jimenez. I'd go for Lukaku, but Fernandes is a good choice, to be honest. Let's see. Noah says wildcard Ramsdale, Rudiger, Christensen, Diaz, Cancelo, Livramento, Saar, and Mbeumo next week. Salah, Rafinha, Grealish, Lukaku, Antonio. Jimenez most times 4-3-3 or 3-4-3 when Brentford have incredible fixtures. Yeah, I like the team, to be honest. Yeah, that looks really solid. I like the team a lot. Obviously, Rafinha, just bear in mind his situation in Game Week 8 potentially, but that looks good. Grealish, let's see how he does, but that team looks pretty solid. Rate my team: Sanchez, Foster, Trent, Shaw, Chilwell, Livramento, White, Rafinha, Saar, Benrahma, Salah, Son, Antonio, Saint-Maximin, Wood. Wood is really good for this game week. He's not someone I'd like to have long term, but I do like him. Yeah, obviously Trent is definitely missing out this week. Chilwell is, I would just get rid of him anyway, looking long term, but maybe this is not the week to get rid of him because this could be finally where he starts. And yeah, I like the rest of the team, to be honest. Obviously, Benrahma with the fixtures coming up and Saar, they could be kind of some serious doubts, but I like Salah and Rafinha, and Son could be an interesting choice. And yeah, you don't have Lukaku or Ronaldo up front, or even Vardy. That could be a concern, but I do like Antonio. And yeah, the rest of your attack should be good for this week. Ronaldo or Lukaku captain, I'd probably go for Lukaku, but I do like Ronaldo too this week. Should I take a -4 for a bench player? There might be rotation issues in the starting 11. If you really think one of your players in your starting 11 might not feature and you need that player on your bench who's good, like a Rafinha or whatever that you bring in, then yes, I would take it. Otherwise, you don't have to. Should I sell Barnes for Saka? I'd probably go for that, yeah, especially if it isn't for a hit. 4 potential choices for captain: Antonio, Ronaldo, Salah, Saint-Maximin. Any thoughts? Which one? Out of those 4, this week I'd probably go for Ronaldo or Antonio. I'm not completely decided on that yet. At the moment, I've gone for Ronaldo. I do like Antonio too, but I'd go for one of those instead. Who to captain: Antonio, Ronaldo, Salah, or Rafinha? Want something differential? I'd go for Antonio then. I don't think he's not essentially, or yeah, I wouldn't say he's differential, but yeah, I think he's going to be less captain than Ronaldo and Salah. Well, maybe not Salah, but I'd say definitely Lukaku and Ronaldo this week. Do you think Christensen will play? I think so, to be honest, Kobe. Lukaku, Ronaldo, or Lukaku, Salah, or Ronaldo, Salah on wildcard? Salah and Lukaku on a wild card. Sorry, Dylan, when I asked Jimenez with a bad bench or Tony with a decent bench, I was out. What's your answer? Jimenez with a bad bench or Tony with a decent bench. When you say bad bench, do you mean you have absolutely no one there? You basically have pure bench fodder. Maybe Brownhill, and then you have players you don't even start, or you just have like a Williams. I'd rather have a decent bench anyway, and long term, I'd rather have Tony over Jimenez, so I'd go for Tony with a decent bench. Even though from this point onwards, up until Game Week 9, I'd think Jimenez will outscore Tony. I'm taking a hit for Shaw and Jota to Rudiger and Rafinha. What do you think? Yeah, I think that's a good hit, to be honest. I think it makes sense. Can we consider Kane at any point this season? Definitely. Things change. Just because Kane looks completely awful right now, at least in the Premier League, doesn't mean that he can't, bring his form back. He's one of the best goal scorers of all time in the Premier League, and there will be a good fixture run coming up. I just think it mainly has to do with how Spurs set up and whether his mentality is there, whether he's mentally in the right place. But I think he will get his act together and he will start scoring. Antonio or Salah for captain differential. 9% will captain Ronaldo, Lukaku, and I'd go for Antonio. Christensen this week -4 or Aspie next week -4. Probably Christensen this week, but both of them are good options. There's not really a right or wrong answer there. Is it good without Chelsea player in Game Week 7? Me, wildcard in Game Week 8. I wouldn't say it's good, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have a Chelsea player, but I'd rather have one or two than having none. Tanganga out for Rudiger, definitely. I wouldn't think about it. Thank you, Sad. Laser says Williams, Livramento, Sissoko versus Mbeumo, Livramento and Semedo. Oof. I'd rather have Mbeumo, Livramento and Semedo. The only problem there is you potentially have some rotation headaches from time to time, but I probably would prefer that. There's nothing wrong with the first set of players also, and yeah, Jimenez over Tony I think is probably best for the next few game weeks, but from game weeks 10 onwards, maybe Tony's the better pick. Dennis or Gray I should start with. I'd probably start Dennis. I think he will outscore him, but I'm not too confident on either this week. Sorry, just joined. Are you planning to use any chips this game week? At the moment, no. I am possibly going to do a late wild card, but if not, it'll probably be activated in game week 8, and I'm making one free transfer, either Trent or Shaw to Rudiger, and if not, it will be Rafinha coming in for Jota. My team thought Sanchez, Gunn, Cancelo, Alonso, Marçal, Livramento, Andrew, Salah, Rafinha, Traore, Gray, Lukaku, Antonio, Ronaldo. Really good attacking force. You could possibly downgrade Ronaldo when the fixtures turn to someone else, but you don't have to, especially this week. I think with your midfield, Traore I would definitely get rid of. I'd probably get someone else in. Even Sarr for this game week specifically. If you want someone long term, maybe look at Saka or Gallagher, for example. And as for your defence, I'd probably improve it by moving Andrew on, the Norwich defender, maybe even to Duffy, for example. And if you have a free transfer to spare, Sanchez to, let's say, for example, Ramsdale or Gunn to Foster, they look like good moves. And Alonso, if he starts to be rotated more often, I'd move him on to, let's say, Rudiger, Azpilicueta, Christensen, or maybe even Diaz as well when City have good fixtures from game week 8 onwards. Thank you, Ibrahim. Azpilicueta or Alonso? I'd probably say Azpilicueta at this moment because of Alonso's uncertainty, but they're both good options. How do you rate Chelsea in terms of iWatch? Doesn't look like a team that could score 4 or 5. No, they can, from time to time, but yeah, most weeks they're going to be scoring 2, possibly 3 during this good fixture run, but I don't see them scoring too many like a City could when they're really in the mood. And even with their defence, I still think they'll keep this most or second most clean sheets this season. I'd probably say second most behind City. And a double up in defence is good, but you can always go for 1 and that is enough. And you can cover other defences like Wolves with Semedo, and then obviously City, you could go for a double up there, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and having these cheap defenders like Livramento to cover. So yeah, I think having 1 Chelsea defender and Lukaku is enough. You don't have to have a triple up, but if you do have 1, I'd probably go for a double up in defence. Do I take a -4 to bring in Rafinha for Gray? Only have 2 playing defenders, but no point in bringing a defender because if they keep a clean sheet, only 2 points. Wildcard game week 8, so Rafinha 1 week punt for -4 for Gray. Yeah, I probably would do that, to be honest. What about Thiago Silva? He is a good option, but I'd just rather have one of the defenders I mentioned before. Christensen, either Marcos Alonso, and Azpilicueta and Rudiger. I think they're just more nailed, and maybe not Alonso, but the others are, in my opinion. Thanks, love the stream. Thank you very much, Rai. Really appreciate it. Vardy and Gallagher versus Jimenez and Diaz. Confused on which duo will give more points in the medium to long term on a wild card. Good question. I think medium to long term, Jimenez and Diaz. I think they would give you more points, Ash. That's just my personal opinion. They're both good duos and they both could do really well. Vardy is the most explosive of the 4, but Jimenez and Diaz I think will just tick along nicely, especially Diaz. I think that's the main key. I would definitely rather have Vardy over Jimenez, but Diaz over Gallagher is a no-brainer. Aspi equals slave fruit. Alonso equals more risk for potential points. Completely agree, Domba. That's the way I see it. Alonso has been playing every single minute so far, but I think that could change very soon. Laser says, let's reach 100 likes. Yeah, that'd be very much appreciated. If any of you have been watching, you've been enjoying the content, and you haven't smashed the like button, why not? It costs nothing, and you can also subscribe to the channel if you want to see future live streams and videos. Thoughts on Arsenal defenders? The same as before. Ramsdale as a goalkeeper to cover could be really good. Ben White is my favourite because he's only 4.4 million, and I like Tomiyasu a lot. 4.5 million offers a bit of attacking potential, and he can get some bonus points because, for example, against Spurs, he had the most touches of any player in the game, so he has that, which can obviously be a big part in terms of bonus points. He makes a lot of good passes, he's very accurate, and he wins a lot of aerial duels, so he's got a lot going for him. I think Tomiyasu, in terms of the cheaper Arsenal defenders, can get a lot of bonus points, and of course, Tierney's a good choice, but he's more injury prone, so I'd be a bit put off him. But in terms of creativity and attacking threat, he poses the most of any of the defenders. White 4.4 million is huge value for the bench. I completely agree, Domba. And also Tomiyasu at 4.5 million. I think both of them are really good. Play Sarr, Rafinha, or Saint-Maximin. I wouldn't bench any of them, mate. Play all of them. I would not bench any single one of them. If I had to play one, I'd play Rafinha, but I like all of them. Definitely don't bench one of them if you can. White and Livramento rotate really well. Yeah, that's another thing. On a wild card, I'm considering both of them with maybe double Chelsea defence for the time being and Cancelo. Thoughts on Grealish? He's someone I actually put in my best wild card team, and I might actually go for him myself. I'm not too convinced, but because he's fairly nailed in a City attack, I am kind of tempted by him. Yeah, play Sarr and Rafinha both. Yeah, I'd probably play all of them, but Sarr and Rafinha would be first two, especially Rafinha. What should Traore owners do? I'd probably sell him, to be honest. Obviously, it's not ideal. Not an ideal time to sell him because he's got Newcastle, and if he starts, he can do well, but I'd probably get rid of him, to be honest. Thank you to everyone who has been tuning in. I'll be reading out any last questions and comments, and then I'll be wrapping up. Still going for 2 hours, and my voice has, I'd say, handled it reasonably well, and I should be back within a few days, not ill, at least, fully recovered, and ready to make more videos and live streams heading into Game Week 8. Of course, we've got the international break, so that's, I'd say, a good opportunity for my voice to recover. But yeah, I'll be answering any last questions you have, and then we'll be wrapping up. So thank you very much to everyone who has joined in. And of course, you can follow me, as I always say, on Twitter and Instagram, and you can talk to me there too. And obviously, once again, massive shout out to everyone who's sending super chats today, including Domba. Massively appreciated. The new channel members, obviously, massively humbled by the support. And yeah, I appreciate obviously all the comments, feedback that you lot give me. Should I do a minus, or should I do Semedo and Rafinha for Trent and take a -4? I probably would, to be honest, Michael, yeah. Especially if you can bring Trent back in a few game weeks' time. Your prediction for Liverpool versus City, I think we'll beat Liverpool 1-0 or 2-1. You know what? I'm seeing a draw. I don't know why. I said this with Liverpool-Chelsea, and I said 1-1. I called that game right. I see something similar again. I'm not sure, to be honest. It could go either way, but it could be very similar to the game at the Etihad last season where, both teams kind of cancel each other out. Keep or sell Mount? I wouldn't be selling him because he's back now, available for selection, but if you're asking me for my ideal Chelsea triple up, it'll be 2 Chelsea defenders and Lukaku. I already have Rudiger, and with both Shaw and Trent, does it make sense to transfer Trent to Cancelo or any other Man City defender? Hope you're feeling better as well. Thank you, Mickey. And yes, I am. You already have Rudiger, and with both Shaw and Trent, does it make sense to Trent? If you're wildcarding in Game Week 8, I would just get another Chelsea defender in, because on paper, Cancelo will most likely not get a clean sheet against Liverpool, although you never know. But if you're looking for a long-term transfer, then I'd definitely get Cancelo despite the fixture this week. Best 7 million midfielder for Game Week 7, Rafinha or Saka? Definitely Rafinha, mate. Rafinha all day long. Keep Shaw or take a -4 for Alonso? I'd probably keep, because there's a chance of him playing, and Alonso might not even start anyway. Should I sell Trent? If you're wildcarding in Game Week 8, you could, especially if you're down to the bare bones. The way I see it, if you have enough cover, you can just keep Trent and avoid taking hits or, making or using your free transfers. And maybe, if you're wildcarding in Game Week 8, you could just make a free transfer somewhere else, like, for example, Jota to Rafinha. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, you could just get rid of him, to be honest. There's no right or wrong answer. It's kind of a team-dependent question. You look at my case, for example, and I think it makes more sense to sell him, to be honest. For this game week, do I start Gray and Tony, or Gray and Rafinha, or Gray or Rafinha and Gray? I'd start Tony and Rafinha. Will Alonso start? I honestly think there's a chance that Chilwell starts, and it's a 50-50 call. Who knows what Tuchel's thinking, but I think this is the game week where Chilwell can get his first start of the season in the Premier League. Is it better to have 1 million cash in the bank and go for Christensen instead of Aspi on a wild card? I think possibly go for Christensen, because that 1 million could be really helpful down the line, where, for example, in game week 15, when United have great fixtures, you can do Lukaku to Ronaldo with that 1 million. So I'd probably go for Christensen, but Azpilicueta is a very good choice too. I need to pick 7 out of Wood, Saint-Maximin, Antonio, Salah, Son, Sarr, Rafinha and Benrahma. Pick 7 out of those. Jesus Christ. 4... Yeah, so you have to bench 1, basically. I would probably bench... Oh, that's tough. Who do you bench from those? Maybe Saint-Maximin, but that could backfire. Yeah, I'd probably go for him. Keep or sell Jota? I'd probably sell him, but of course he still can do well. Laser, go ask Tuchel. Yeah, obviously I can offer my opinion, but I could be wrong. Great content, man. Much love from Norway. Thank you very much, Vasir. Really appreciate it, and big up Norway as well. And obviously the legend Erling Haaland and Odegaard. Should I sell Ronaldo to raise to improve the squad and bring back Trent in another game week? Ooh. I would want to keep Ronaldo this week. It's not the kind of week I'd want to get rid of him. If I was wildcarding, I would get Lukaku in for him, but without that, I'd probably just keep him. Saka or Sarr? Sarr for this game week, long-term Saka. Should I do Semedo and Rafinha for Trent and take a -4, or do Cancelo for Trent and get Rafinha next week? I wouldn't get rid of Semedo this week against Newcastle, to be honest. Yeah, what you could do is just get Rafinha in this week if you can with a free transfer. Forson Vardy as a differential captain. Yeah, he's one that I've been talking about. I think he could do really well. And this week doesn't really have a standout captaincy because Ronaldo faces Everton, who, in terms of expected goals conceded, are actually one of the best in the league. Salah faces the best defence in the league in Manchester City at the moment. You have Antonio. He's actually a really good choice. But other than that, yeah, in terms of fixtures and form, the combination, I think Vardy's one of the best choices this week. Sanchez or Raya on keeping. I think looking at the fixtures, probably Raya, but Sanchez is still a good choice, and I'd rather have Ramsdale in my opinion. Hey Dylan, I have my wildcard and 2 free transfers. I have Bamford and Trent flagged, only 1 bench player. Your suggestions, FPL Matt Price. Already have Alonso, Lukaku, Antonio. Yeah, 2 free transfers. You have Bamford and Trent. Only 1 player on the bench. Then I'd play that player on your bench who, if you trust him, like a Ben White, have them play and then make 1 free transfer. And then I'd probably, yeah, you've already got Alonso, Lukaku, Antonio. I'd probably get Rudiger in for Trent. I'd probably do something like that. Especially if you have you've got the wild card, so you can do that in Game Week 8. Azpilicueta or Alonso, because of how nailed he is, I'd go for Azpilicueta, but Alonso is a good choice. Thanks for Mauritius. I actually know people from Mauritius, so big you up. And thank you very much for joining in. Obviously, very nice country. Maybe one day I'll be going there. What do you think of Aspi's attacking threat now with James set to miss a few games? It will not be anywhere near as high as Reece James, who's been getting pretty much an assist every single start, but I think it can be obviously better than when he's playing as one of the centre-backs. But even then, I think Azpilicueta always tends to offer a bit of attacking threat, so he's always a good option. He's not going to offer you the same levels as Alonso and Reece James, but he's still a good choice, I think. I'm stuck right now. I have 1.2 million spare, willing to get rid of Sarr, Great, or Jota. Who could I get? I wouldn't get rid of Sarr this game week. I'd be getting rid of him in future game weeks, and yeah, Jota to Rafinha I think would be a smart move. Fortnite montage madness. Greenwood and Trent to Rudiger and Rafinha. Yep, that looks like 2 good moves. Just bear in mind that Greenwood could do well against Everton this week. Force on Tony after Game Week 8. I think one of the best strikers you can get long term, especially around his price. Jimenez captain, I probably wouldn't go there, but he can do well. If you have a gut feeling about it, go for it. But I wouldn't go for it personally. He scored against Southampton and he got the bonus points, but it's not something I would expect. I don't have enough confidence in Wolves and him, scoring, especially 2 or 3. With Antonio, for example, I think it's more likely. James will only miss Southampton. Yeah, exactly, Laser. That's a good point. And he might miss out with the international games, but that could be a good thing. He should be recovered in time for Game Week 8 or 9. Should I bring in Wood and then take him out next week and bring in Sam X-Man or Wood as Wood has City? Yeah, or if not, get Tony already, in preparation for the good games coming up from Game Weeks 10 onwards. What's your final back 3? Well, I'll be confirming that with my final, team selection. I'll be posting a picture on the YouTube community tab and on Twitter. But most likely, if Shaw is fit, it'll be Shaw, Cody, and Ben White as my back 3. But if not, it could be, Rudiger coming in for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then possibly Ben White for Shaw. And I might even play a back 4, depending on, what my final transfer is. Is Saka a viable option for the next 3 or 5 game weeks? I think he is, but I'll have to be honest, I'm a bit cautious and reserved about him. And I'm not really too convinced by any of the options. The way I see it, Rafinha's the best around his price. I like Sarr a lot, but the problem I have is the fixtures, and also Watford are very inconsistent. Cancelo for a goal and clean sheet this game week, make him the captain, not against Liverpool, to be honest. I think if Cancelo was playing a weaker team where that is likely, then yeah, I would consider it, but I'm not too sure. I just think the odds kind of stack up against that. Best replacements for Salah after this game week, definitely Rafinha, and if not, I'd be looking at Gallagher, Saka, maybe one of the Everton guys like Townsend or Gray. I already have Rafinha. Could I get someone like Benrahma? Is it worth it? For this game week, yes, but long term, if you look at West Ham's fixtures and you already have Antonio, I just don't see the need to get him in too. By the way, you're my favourite FPL manager tips person. You are amazing. Keep up, bro. FPL manager tips person sounds funny, mate, but thank you very much. Obviously, really appreciate it, and hope to see you in future streams and videos too. And yeah, I try my best, obviously. Thank you very much for the positive comment. I watch a few others, but you are by far my favourite. Yeah, there's a lot of people, to be honest, with good content. So, and even websites, you know, there's so many things you have access to. FPL's grown by the year, really. And a few years ago, I'll be honest, I didn't know it existed. And obviously, I started hearing about it, started playing it, and yeah, obviously, pretty fun when when it's not too bad. Play Gallagher against Leicester or Diaz against Liverpool. That's a tough one. I'd be tempted to play Gallagher against Leicester, but don't be surprised if City keep a clean sheet against Liverpool. It's just something that I don't back. Personally, I think both teams will score, but then again, it could be a draw. The way I'm seeing it, it could be a draw, probably 1-1, and 0-0 isn't out of the cards though. 105 points in UCL Fantasy. Yeah, a lot of people have been getting really high scores with the Limitless. I've seen 110, 106, 105, 102. So yeah, I think it was a really good week to play the Limitless, and I talked about it in my chip strategy guide. Match day 2 or 5 for me is the best, and then wildcarding in match day 3 or saving it for the knockout stages. Let's see. Grealish or Rafinha? I would prefer Rafinha. Havertz or Mount in? Probably Mount, but I'm not too keen on either. I would rather have double Chelsea defence. But they don't top you, bro. You're amazing. What are your thoughts on more than 2 game week hits? Obviously, it's still down to personal opinion. They're all good, but thank you very much for your comment. More than 2 game week hits. Yeah, or as in -8s or above. Honestly, I'm a bit adverse to them. Obviously, once in a while, taking a risky -8 or a calculated risk, I think it makes sense, but I try to avoid them. A -4 is probably the most I'd go for. Best captain for this week, I think, if I'm being honest, Ronaldo against Everton, Antonio against Brentford, and I'd say Vardy against Palace. Another one, actually, is Chris Wood as a differential against Norwich. He could be exceptional. Then other than that, there's Rafinha against Watford. I back him to do well. And possibly, you could say Sarr against Leeds, but I'd mainly be backing Rafinha there. From Wolves against Newcastle, if you want to go really bold, there is Semedo, but I probably wouldn't go there. I'd mainly be looking at one of the forwards and midfielders I mentioned before. So that was what I'd look at. And obviously, how can I forget? Lukaku against Southampton, definitely one to go for. If I had more faith in Alonso starting, I'd probably say him against Southampton. Will you do a wildcard video for game week 3? Yes, I'll be making a best wildcard team for match day 3, and I'll be talking about my team selection, which probably involves the wildcard, to be honest. I'll be talking about that closer to the deadline. You are like a mate to have a quality discussion of FPL. I appreciate it, Eternal. Obviously, that's a great way of summing it up. Yeah, that's what I like about FPL and doing these videos and streams, talking about different players, ideas, and concepts with you lot, and obviously having back and forth discussion. So I really appreciate it, Eternal. I got 97, which is pretty good in UCL, definitely. Before match day 2, I think my highest was 95, and that was on a Limitless. So yeah, 97 is an incredible score. Antonio, Ronaldo, captain, both really good. I'm going for Ronaldo at the moment, but there's no right or wrong. I think in terms of the fixture, yeah, that's a tough one. In terms of underlying stats, you'd probably say Everton is the easier fixture, but then again, they've got the second best expected goals conceded, I believe. So they're both quite tough, to be honest. With Limitless, yeah. Gallagher or Decore, I'd go for Gallagher. Thoughts on Watkins, I talked about him before. I think with the fixtures coming up, I think he could do really well. I'd rather have him over Danny Ings, but having said that, I'd also rather have Jimenez, Ivan Toney, and a few others like St. Maximin over Watkins at the moment, but I think he's going to come good. Maybe not do as well as he did last season when he was completely nailed on the main forward, but still, I think he could do all right to come. Thoughts on my team? De Gea, Duffy, Region, Cody, Rudiger, Jota, Salah, Gray, Antonio, St. Maximin, Ronaldo, Steer, Trossard, Basuma, Trent. Who should I captain, though? Captain, I keep it simple. Ronaldo or Antonio. At the moment, I'm going for Ronaldo, so that's what I'd go for, but I might change my mind to Antonio in the end. As for your team, I think it looks decent this week, to be honest. Yeah. Obviously, long term, I'd be probably wildcarding if you have it already. Change some things like your goalkeeper, even your defence, make a mix-up, get some City players in, maybe an extra defender, and in your midfield, yeah, I'd probably be looking to get rid of Jota and possibly Gray, but that's a good team for the time being. Saint-Maximin's good, but yeah, I think long-term, Saint-Maximin isn't someone I'd go for. I'd rather have Ivan Toney. But yeah, I think that's a good team. And as for your bench, you've got a lot of depth there. Yeah, that's another thing I'd probably rectify on a wildcard if you have it. Is it a must-have to have a Chelsea defender for this week, or should I keep Shaw? I don't think it's absolutely must-have, but if I'm being honest, I'd rather have a Chelsea player, especially a defender, than having none at all. But I wouldn't say you have to have them, because they could, Southampton could score a goal. Is having a Man City defender long-term a must? I think I'd rather have one. I'd say it's as close to must as you can have. Obviously, Chelsea defenders can cover you up until game week 14, but beyond that, when City continue to have good fixtures, and they're fixture-proof anyway, Cancelo and Diaz are really good options. You're going to ruin your voice, my boy. End the stream. Thank you very much, Abdullah. Don't worry, I will be ending the stream soon. I made a mistake putting Gossens in, so I lost 5 points. I actually nearly did that myself, but in the end, I actually, I kept Benzema. So I was very lucky there. What if it's a free hit? Says Raval. Trying to find your previous comment, what you're on about. I wouldn't be free hitting this week. I'd be saving it for future game weeks, to be honest, like a double or blank game week. Start Gray or Shaw? I'd start Shaw. My team was hacked this week. I'm locked out. Hope they can fix it. Have you heard of many others that got hacked? I heard of actually that situation on Twitter. It's just appalling, to be honest, and FPL should do more about it, but it's outside of our control. And it just tends to be these kind of third-party websites where you put your login information. That's how they obtain it, and you get hacked. Tony or Jimenez? Long-term, I'd rather have Tony, but I like Jimenez up until gaming 14. Okay, thanks, Dylan. Good luck for tomorrow. You too, Kobe. If you have faith that Alonso will start, will you captain him? If I had faith, I would captain him potentially, yes, in a week like this, but I don't, so therefore I wouldn't. 18 likes to go. Come on, we can do it before the end of the stream. Appreciate the persistence, Laser. And even then, I think, some people watch it after the stream ends, so it can reach 100. So obviously, thank you very much for pushing that. Anyone can free hit. You obviously can free hit this week. It isn't the worst idea in the world, but I would rather use it in another week where I think the circumstances I think it would suit it more. Should I go for Aspie or Rudiger? Aspie has a higher chance of bonus due to higher baseline BPS and can get more attacking returns, but Rudiger's cheaper. I'd still rather go for Rudiger, but yes, I think Aspilicueta is a good choice too, and you can always go for both of them. Play 4 at the back with Rudiger, Shaw, White and Cody, or play 3 at the back and without Shaw. It depends who your midfield is, but I like that back 4, to be honest, for this week, and I'd rather have that long term. Tony or Jimenez? Once again, I'd say Tony, but I like Jimenez too. Yeah, I put Rudiger in for Benzema, which I shouldn't have, but that's always said with hindsight. A great stream as always. Yeah, Rudiger actually, to be honest, he can still get ball recovery points, so that makes sense, and we expected Chelsea to be better than they were. They were very flat against Juventus. Duffy or Livramento? For the next few game weeks, Duffy. So I'd say the next 2-3 game weeks, but long term, probably Livramento. The way I see it, Duffy and Brighton are better defensively than Southampton and Livramento, but because of the fixtures, Livramento is looking a bit better at the moment. Thoughts on my team: Sanchez, Semedo, White, Rudiger, Salah, Rafinha, Sarr, Benrahma, Lukaku captain, Antonio, Ronaldo bench, Foster, Livramento, Tsimikas, Mendy. I like that team for this week, especially that defence is looking really good. Long term though, obviously I'd be making some changes, so potentially Sarr and Benrahma. You can move on for a Saka or Gallagher or an Everton midfielder. Also, looking at your attack, you can do Ronaldo possibly to Vardy potentially, especially when Ronaldo has some tough fixtures coming up. And looking at your bench, I think that's the main thing to improve. So Tsimikas, you could turn into Duffy. I think that's one thing you can do. Sanchez, you could get Ramsdale instead, so you can cover Brighton defence anyway, even if you get rid of Sanchez. How many points did you get in UCL? I got 106, so I'm around 3,000 in the world. I'll be talking about that more in my UCL fantasy videos. Zaha or Grealish? I'd rather go for Grealish, and as I talked about with Zaha, he's got a great record against Brighton, and I'm not surprised that he scored against them, but then again, it was a penalty. Trent, Shaw, White, Duffy and Amati, defence, Basuma, Salah, Fernandes, Southchicken. Alan, Jesus, yeah, the voice is nearly gone. Vardy, Jimenez and Antonio. What do you suggest for game week 7, as I have only one free transfer, and will you wildcard game week 8 or 9? I would wildcard in game week 8 rather than game week 9, but obviously there's no right or wrong there. Yeah, I think in terms of your suggestions, you only have one free transfer. I don't know how much money you have available, but I'd either do Trent to a Chelsea defender, or I'd possibly move one of your midfielders like Soucek to Rafinha if you can afford it. So Soucek to Rafinha, or Trent to Rudiger, or one of the Chelsea defenders. Douglas Luiz or Allen, I like both of them, to be honest. Not too much in it. Probably Douglas Luiz, but they're both good. So far this season, Allen's been better, but I think Douglas Luiz could outperform him for the next few weeks. Matip or White, I'd rather go for White. Can you wrap it up? I'm hungry, don't worry, I will. Get some rest, Dylan. You've already been streaming for 2 hours plus. Don't worry, I will be soon. Just trying to get through these questions. Start Cancelo or Tony this week? I'd start Tony. Will Alonso start? I don't think so, but there is a chance he will. So obviously don't hold me to it. It's down to what you think. Price rising rapidly for Alonso and Cancelo. Who do I bring in for Williams for a -4? I got Tierney, Rudiger, Livramento. I'd rather have Cancelo long term, honestly, but I do like Alonso if he is relatively nailed. Zaha I don't think is good as he has too hot-headed. I agree. And he's also a bit inconsistent, and Palace are an iffy team. Thoughts on these transfers? Williams to Aspi, Jota to Saka, and Ronaldo to Lukaku. Thoughts on Jota? Should I keep for Watford or get Saka instead of him? I think with Firmino coming back, it just makes it more complicated, and he hasn't been called up to Brazil, so he's not missing out on Game Week 8. So Jota might not even start against Watford. I think there's an argument to just get rid of Jota. I think all those transfers are good, Abdullah, especially Williams to Aspi and Ronaldo to Lukaku. And I'm guessing Jota to Saka facilitates that. Yeah, we'll get 100 likes after the stream ends, but we want to hit it during the stream. Fair enough, but I'll be wrapping up now. Just going to try get through these last few questions. Thank you very much to everyone who's been liking and subscribing. And once again, massive shout out to everyone who helped me reach 6,000 subscribers the other day. Abdullah, I think Jota will lose his place for Jimenez. I have... Or Firmino, but well, that makes sense. Evening all. Thank you, Harry. Unfortunately, I'm going to be wrapping up very soon. Thank you, Laser. And thank you, Sandels, Sanchez, Alonso, Cancelo, Duffy, Saar, Benrahma, Rafinha, Salah, Tony Captain, Antonio Ronaldo. Tony Captain, that is very interesting. Good luck with that. I probably would be going for Antonio Ronaldo Captain, but that looks good. A -4 worth it for Williams to Cancelo. I have Tierney, Rudiger, and Livramento. I think it is one day. I'd go for it. Sell Duffy or Williams for Rudiger? I'd sell Williams. Even though this week he has a better fixture, I'd rather keep Duffy long term. Cheers. Thank you, my guy. Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ahmed. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Remember to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. We've been streaming for over 2 hours. Unfortunately, my voice, it's better than before, but it is gone. I'm going to be taking a break now. Going to be having dinner. And I'm going to be enjoying the rest of the weekend. I'll be confirming my final team with you on the community tab and on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter, Dylan_RCM. Same with Instagram. So thank you very much to everyone who's been tuning in. Thank you, Eternal. You too. Take care. Before you go, what's your honest thoughts on Chris Wood captain? If you want a differential, I'd probably just go for it. It's not really a week where there's a standout captaincy option other than maybe Antonio and Ronaldo. So I think it could be a good week to do it. Obviously, if I had Chris Wood in my team, would I do it? Probably not. But if you're looking for a differential captain, I think it's a good chance. Greenwood and Lukaku or Grealish and Ronaldo? That's an interesting question, to be honest. I mean, looking at the fixtures, I'd probably still go for Greenwood and Lukaku, to be honest, but they're both good. On an unrelated note, and you might have already read it but couldn't watch for a bit, but your voice reminds me of Atani, who is a FIFA YouTuber. Someone said that before. I think it was Adil. He used to tell me that all the time. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I've heard Itani before, I think, because of the comparison, and I just don't see it, but, fair enough. Maybe it's the voice gone. Thank you, great stream as always. Thank you, Laser. Thank you, Abdullah. Hey, I decided against going for the popular Lukaku because of price. Instead, I went for Vardy. I think he might have scored Lukaku. Yeah, to be honest, that could be really good. I think they're both good options, but I'd still go for Lukaku myself, but, they're both good. Thank you, Caspiano. Thank you, MISM. Thank you, Kobe. And obviously, good luck to you as well. Shadrach 2. Thank you, Eternal. Rawan, thank you very much. Yarang, thank you so much for becoming a channel member today and for always tuning in. Thank you, Abdullah, once again, and Laser. Michael says, before you go, best differential captain out of Lukaku, Ronaldo, and Antonio? Well, as a differential captain, definitely Antonio. But the best captain overall, in my opinion, is Lukaku. I like all of them, though. Thank you. Take care, Dylan, and good luck for Game Week 7. Thank you very much. You too as well. And Laser says, let's hit at least 90 likes. It's fine, don't worry. It will hit 90 likes by the end of the stream. Ronaldo will score in every game. Not too sure about that, and even then, you wouldn't want to captain in my opinion. No, missed it all. Thanks, Dylan. Quick one. Lukaku and Aspi in for Ronnie and Trent. Be a -4. I'd say yes, but Ronaldo can do really well this week, so that could maybe backfire a bit. Thank you and feel better. Thank you, Mickey. You too. Obviously, thank you for always tuning in. What does RCM stand for? It's just my initials. To be honest, nothing special. Come on, lads and ladies. Let's get Dylan as many likes as possible. He's been streaming for over 2 hours now. Answering majority of the questions. Doesn't cost anything to hit the like button. He's a top man. Thank you so much, Matthew Price, for the shout out. And I'm going to try get recover. We've just hit 90 likes, by the way, so thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for all the support and all the subscribers and all the super chats, the channel members, obviously massively appreciated. You don't have to do all of that. And good luck with Game Week 7. And obviously, I will try my best to get more content out ahead of Game Week 8 and Match Day 3 of UCL Fantasy. So until then, all the very best and good luck with FPL.